Hello, good morning, and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Will the corruption tag on Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and his government stick? He has an answer to that. He said, no way. Guess what? He repeats the refrain during the electioneering campaign that he did not come to public life to enrich himself. But is that what the debate is about? We will discuss the matter of corruption and the accusation that President Akufo-Addo is supervising unprecedented, historic grafts and sleaze. So, why is it that we can't seem to make good of Ghana's money, the taxpayers' scarce resources? The previous administration built a lot of hospital infrastructure. But as we are being told now, many of these, a dozen of them, have been abandoned. We check the cost, the gaps, and the impact on the taxpayer. What happens to the constitutional injunction on successive governments, succeeding governments, to continue with projects started by the predecessor governments. The CSSPS. Why the ritual wahala? Parents are worried. Guards are worried. And the students who are looking to the opportunity to continue their education are worried because the placement system can't seem to place them. Why the ritual wahala? We'll find answers to these questions here on Newsfile this morning. I'm your host, Samson Ladi Anyanini. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This Newsfile is your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. We have 3 segments for the 3 hours, 3 topical issues. We're dealing with the computer placements and the problems that continue to come up almost every year and why we can't seem to resolve those problems. Abandoned hospitals. Why is that so? And the corruption debate. The president says that corruption tag of he being a clear-eyed will not stick. So, for the first hour, my guests are Dr. Kwabena Bempatando. He is Acting Deputy Director General of the GES. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Good to be here.
Also here in the studio is Dr. Justice Yankson, General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association and a practicing lawyer. Thanks for joining us, Doc.
Thank you, Samson.
Great. Also here this morning is the rebel, Kofi Bentil, Senior Vice President, Imani Africa. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You put up a message on social media and it went viral, and there was a hashtag about it.
Some people
you didn't seem to like the hashtag.
No, you see, I'm sure what I want to say. And many times people ask me, why are you not saying this, or why are you not?
I just said what I wanted to say. I didn't want the hashtag. And it went all over. I was getting it from all over the
All
world.
right, all right, all right. You are essentially saying that?
It had to do with PDS.
Yes.
The fact that, generally speaking, it's clear they don't have money, but we hoped or pretended that they had money. It's clear they couldn't run the things we gave them to run, and we were just hoping they would run it.
Okay.
Now it's clear the thing has collapsed, but we are still going along with them. And it's worrying that something is very clear, but we all pretend we don't see it. That's a real problem.
A friend, Kuku Enchibwesiako on Facebook also says that this is the PDS matter summarized. I give you my timepiece, and I ask you to tell me what time it is. Okay, so also here in the studio is Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa. He's MP, North Tongue. Thank you very much for joining us. And Ranking Member, Foreign Affairs Committee of the August House of Parliament. He's also been writing some epistles and telling the President his peace of mind about the matter of corruption. But for the first segment, we are not talking corruption, unless it is corruption that is causing the placement system to not be able to place the students. We will talk about corruption later. It's one of the biggest discussions for this morning. All right, so let's listen to the Director General of the Ghana Education Service and I think a couple others. We'll come back to the studio and ask why the ritual wahala.
By our predictions, approximately 490,000 qualified students will be placed. Purchase your voucher from vendors or with mobile money online. 2, you visit, this year we have 2 websites that they can go. You visit either cssps.gov.gh or csssps.org. Then you click on check placement. Then you enter your index number and your voucher code.
All right, so that's the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, and that was at a press gathering where he had to give the release and tell us what was to be expected. Unfortunately, things have not been that smooth. In fact, parents have been worried, guardians have been worried, and the students are equally worried, frustration, and some traumatized because they didn't expect this to be the situation. So, about is it 2-3 days ago or so, you gave a statement and asked that those that have not been able to be placed by the machines, by the system, should go where and do self-placement. And that also there are problems with it. The question is, why did we get there? What's wrong?
Well, thank you very much. I would first like to situate the conversation within a certain context, because if we pluck it out of context, then it makes no sense. Number one is to look at the number of students that actually had complete files after we collected all of our data from WAEC. WAEC submitted to us 512,083 complete files in terms of students who had all of the credentials and have sat for the exams to be considered for senior high school placement. Out of that, there is a disqualification rate. And that disqualification is based on whether or not a student got a 9 in mathematics or a 9 in English. And so that disqualification rate took out 38,355 students. Now, these students don't have to end their educational career. There are opportunities for them to resit based on some of the policies of former President John Mahama in terms of the resit policy. And then there is also an opportunity for them to actually repeat junior high school 3 at no cost to them, and then rewrite the examination.
Rewrite to improve.
To improve.
Not that they have failed.
Yes, rewrite to improve, especially their mathematics and English. Now, out of the 512,083, we have 473,728 who were qualified to be placed. Now, when students are qualified to be placed, we then look at certain things. We look at their choice, because in this country, one of the conversations that we don't have is that fundamentally, senior high school education and where you go is by choice. Nobody has the authority to pick you and put you in any school, but you choose. So before the students write the exams, they make certain choices. I would like to go to this school for my first choice, this school for my second choice, this school for my third, fourth, and then if all of them I am unable to get into, this is a school closer to me that I would like to go as a day school. So number one is school choice. Then number two is program choice. I would like to go to this particular school and do science or do general arts or do business and so on and on. Then the third choice that every student makes is their residential choice. Put me in this school either as a boarding student or put me in the school as a day student. So based on that, we took the 473,728 students and rank them in order of merit. Once you rank them in order of merit, then you start doing the placement. Now, the placement algorithm, which has been the same algorithm that has been used for all these years since we started CSSPS, picks each student and then match them against their choice. Now, you may have gotten an aggregate 6, and then you may have gotten 6 ones for your aggregate 6. And then you said that you want to go to PRESEC, for example, and you want to go and do science. Now, PRESEC has declared 200 spaces for science. And so all of the students who choose to go to PRESEC and want to do science are ranked in order of the best students who chose that school all the way down. Now, once the system picks the top 200 students for PRESEC based on PRESEC's vacancy, student number 201, even if he had 6 ones, cannot go into PRESEC because there isn't any more space. Now, you can also not put that student in PRESEC, for example, to do general arts because he said he wanted to do science. And so that student must now go to their second choice school to compete. When they go to their second choice school, they must compete in rank again. So if they get to their second choice school and there are students in there, but their aggregate 6 is better than some of those other students, they displace the bottom students.
Right.
So it's a very fair system. Now,
that's what it's supposed to be.
That is what it's supposed to be, and that is what it is. So once you run through the process, then we had out of the 473,728, the system was automatically able to place 351,022 students. Why is that? Why couldn't the system place all 473,000? It's because of choice. Because once you run a student through all of their 5, and they are unable to compete in any of the 5, regardless of their aggregate, we don't have the right or the authority to put that student into any program because the student didn't choose. So then what we do is that after we run that, there are then 122,706 students that could not compete in the automatic system. But we also do know that based on the vacancies declared by our 721 senior high schools in the country, we have vacancies for 520,298.
Okay.
And so there is enough vacancy around the country. It's just that the choice pattern will get some people to go without being placed.
So the self-placement allows a fair opportunity for those who didn't get placed for the good reason you just stated, to now come back and say, I can find space in PRESEC if it is available. For example, I may be able to find space in PRESEC, but not to read science.
Exactly.
So now I have the opportunity to choose it myself, not for general arts to be imposed on me.
Exactly.
Is that the understanding?
That is the total understanding.
Okay.
And so that is the process by which the CSSPS system has worked over the past 14 years.
It looks almost perfect.
Yeah.
So why the problems?
Well, I believe that one of the things that we would like to let the general public know is that we need to exercise a certain level of calm. And this is why. The choice patterns, everybody feels, for example, and I have a certain number of schools that I would like, if you permit me, to share. Everybody, for example, wants to go to, and I like using PRESEC because Honorable and I has the opportunity to talk about PRESEC a lot.
Okay.
PRESEC this year.
Why, did you also go to PRESEC?
No,
like
I actually went to Prempeh College.
Oh, okay.
But PRESEC,
College, okay.
for example, declared 1,122 spaces in the school for all of their programs. 1,122 spaces. Now, the number of students in all of the choice files that said, I want to go to PRESEC, either as my first, second, all the way to fifth choice, were 6,948. But there are only seats for 1,122. And so all of the people who chose PRESEC, only 16.14% can gain access. So the rest of the people, even though they may go to the other choices, in everybody's mind, I want to go to PRESEC.
Right.
So I just want to give you a few others. Wesley Girls, which is the talked about school in the country. Wesley Girls in Cape Coast. 4,990 students or young girls and young women said, I want to go to Wesley Girls. But Wesley Girls only had enough vacancy for 510. And so that is only 10.22% of the students can gain access to Wesley Girls. Holy Child, 4,536 students said, I want to go to Holy Child. But Holy Child only had space for 476.
Oh, gee.
So that is 10.49%. Infantsipim, where my senior brother went to school, 4,804 people said, I would like to go to Infantsipim for choice. But Infantsipim only had space for 1,021. That is 21.25% of the students can gain access. Then let me look at some other boys' schools. Prempeh College, of course. 9,705 people said, I would like to go to Prempeh College. But Prempeh College only had space for 1,530. That is 15.76%. Then if we look at our own Achimota that we also talk about a lot, 18,778 people said, I would like to go to Achimota. But Achimota only had space for 1,190.
Oh, I thought Achimota was bigger. It had bigger space.
Sometimes that's what we think. And if it had not been for double track, you couldn't even have created that much space in Achimota, right? And so that is, so Achimota is only 6.34% of the people who wish to go to Achimota can have access. Now, let me give you some large ones. Agri Memorial, AME Zion. Agri Memorial, 22,586 people within the choice files said, I would like to be placed in Agri Memorial if there is space. Agri Memorial only had space for 800 people. So that is 3.54% of the people can gain access. Now, let's go to two other big ones, then we'll end there. Ghana National College, also in Cape Coast. 35,501 people said, I would like to go, but they have to compete for only 850 spaces. And so that is 2.39%. Then the largest school in terms of choice where people wanted to go is Kumasi Secondary Technical School.
Kuhis.
Yes, which is right in Patasi.
No, that's Kumasi High. Sorry, not Kumasi Secondary Technical.
Yes, okay. Kumasi Secondary Technical is in Patasi.
Okay.
KSTS. 37,457 students.
I'm surprised about that, though. What was the
capacity? Their capacity was 1,214.
Out of?
About 37,000 people wanted to go there.
Okay.
So that is only 3 points. So I'd like to present this so that we understand that our choice patterns, are not reflecting, our the spaces that we have available.
Okay.
But one of the things I would like to also say is, again, I have been to Honorable's constituency, and there is a great school there called Bator Senior High School. Excellent facilities. But when students don't choose that school, your only option to getting students to go to Bator in Northton is to open Bator up in self-placement, because we cannot push a student to Bator who didn't choose Bator Senior High School. So the idea that...
You are saying it is not you or your system that places a student from, say, Boga in Bator as a day student. It's not your system.
The student must choose Bator as day, because it is by choice. If you look at the choice patterns, and I can share all of the data.
Where are
with
those
you.
complaints coming from? Because we have heard people complain that, you know, a child who is somewhere in the Western region is being given a school far away from the region as a day student.
My friend, what I would say is that sometimes a lot of these are sensationalization.
Okay.
Right. Because everybody chooses. Every student has a catchment area out of which they choose their school. Now, we also live in Ghana, where I am from Goso in the Ahafo region, but I live in Accra. So I may have a nephew who is living in Goso and want to go to Accra Academy as day, because my nephew knows that I live in North Carnation. So my nephew in Goso in Ahafo region will choose Accra Academy for their day choice, because if I am given day, I will live with my uncle. And so the choice is what we use to make the placement. And I think that it is a fundamental thing that we need to be able to.
Okay, so
to
you
understand.
hold on there. We'll come to even the self-placement and the difficulties that parents, you know, and guardians are having about the self-placement. And let's hear Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who's been Deputy Minister for this sector before, to also tell us what he knows about this situation and why we always come back to what appears to be, from, you know, Dr. Tando's explanation, not a problem, looked like self-created. And partly also because we don't seem to educate the children to choose schools in their catchment areas and so on and so forth. And then later, Kofi Bentil, who is so good at analyzing some of these matters, will bring his expertise to bear. Yes, so what exactly is the problem? Is it the figment of our imagination, or that there really is a problem with the system? Because every year we have heard parents just cry.
Yeah, thank you, Samson, and good morning to you and to the panel. Good to see you, Dr. Ando. It's been a while. It's a good friend of Presec, and I think Presec and Prempe have a good rivalry, if I put it that way.
Did both of you lose your boasting rights over
The champions are here. I can see them arguing among themselves.
I actually was accepted to present,
but we are the champion of champions.
My father is a strong
be careful. Be very, very careful.
You know that we are the most decorated.
No, you can't be. You are just a local champion.
All right.
That
What
is
have you done in West Africa?
Totally undisputable.
But we beg you.
Something, permit me to begin by, this is my first radio outing since my primaries.
Okay.
So it is only appropriate that I extend my very, very sincere gratitude. I do owe the good people of Northton a debt of appreciation for their overwhelming and resounding votes in the last NDC.
Congratulations. It appeared there was actually no competition for you, really.
Yes, it does appear. Yeah, didn't look like that in the beginning, but you know, I didn't take anything for granted.
Right.
So I thank them very much, the chiefs and people, the delegates, and
So he's already in parliament.
they can count on my continuous dedication and commitment to duty. And good morning to all our distinguished viewers and listeners across the globe. The annual ritual, as you rightly call it, I must begin by expressing my empathies with the current team at the Ministry of Education. I know that it is not easy at all. It is getting to July, August, September, when the placement processes must begin. It's tedious, onerous, it's a lot of work. And I do know that it is not an easy task. I must also confirm to you something, that the challenges that have been expressed out there are real.
Right.
We don't have to pretend about them. They are real challenges. Indeed, it is because of these challenges which date prior to the introduction of the CSSPS in 2005 that the idea was mooted to go electronic,
right,
and reduce the human factor to the barest minimum as much as possible. And that is why in 2015, 10 years after implementing the CSSPS, we convened a stakeholder forum. I have here handing over notes. We presented a report from the stakeholder forum carrying out a 10-year assessment, which President Mahama instructed us to carry out, because under his tenure as well, we had these concerns and reservations and frustrations of parents, guardians, students, and we thought that we should carry out this review, invite all the stakeholders, the CHAS, the PTAs, invite WAEC, invite the educationists and all the technical people, software producers who we had used over the years to do a critical assessment, and that report is available. It is quite disappointing, Samson, that it does not appear that we have learned lessons. And I do take issue with some of the measures that the current government have implemented. I think that they have aggravated the situation.
How exactly?
And created more troubles for themselves. For example, the change of software. Why change the software 3 months to such a major exercise? I am reliably informed.
Take note of that.
I am reliably informed that a new software contract was signed 3 months ago. You don't do that because these things you need to do test runs and all of that. Then 2, that policy of 30% placement from public schools. He gave us all the startling statistics. I mean, preset 1,100 spaces declared. Over 20,000 people apply. So when you introduce a 30% reserve for students from public schools, you further worsen, the challenge. You make it even more acute in terms of providing space on merit for those who qualify to enter. When I heard that figure 30%, based on the data that I worked with at the Ministry of Education, I thought it was too high. If you look at the the education sector performance reports, you notice that even now in Greater Accra, private schools at the primary and JHS level have far outnumbered public basic schools. Indeed, public basic schools, but per the last data I saw, were just about 24%. So more than 75% of schools at the at the basic level are private. And across the country, you are now seeing an average of about 60%. So when I understand the rationale, the policy. I'm not against this affirmative action so that a constituent of mine in an island community in Dofokome, where they still are not connected to the national grid, they're living in very deprived conditions.
No private business person will be interested in putting up a school there.
Will have a realistic chance of also attending Presec or Infancy or Prempe or Adisad or Wesley Girls. But we have to be scientific. 30% is too high. And in my view, that is what has even further worsened matters. Then there is also the issue, the third matter I want to raise is with personnel. We keep doing this as a country. Why do we have to virtually replace experienced hands at the CSSPS Secretariat?
That's what has happened?
That's what has happened. I would have thought that they would have kept at least key personnel. I mean, I was speaking to Dr. Atabwatin, who used to be our CSSPS boss. And I asked him, how many of your colleagues are still there? He said, I can't even confirm to you if one survived. Everybody has been cleared. You see, this is public service.
It's such a specialized place. You guys take your politics there too.
We don't need to take our politics there. We don't need to do that. And so when you bring fresh hands, then you complicate it with new software, which has not been tested, no trial runs. And because of free SHS, we all admit that the numbers have gone up. Because anytime you introduce social interventions in education, the numbers go up.
Okay.
So that is why, though I empathize and I will confirm that every year this has been challenging and it's not easy and all of that, the new measures, the new interventions.
But this will not be the first time a new software is being brought on.
But this is the first time it's been done so close. 3 months.
In your regime, a new software was also brought on. The originators of this CSSPS, you know, were sort of...
in 2000...
They were jilted somewhat.
In 2009, yes. We were not at the ministry then.
But
you will admit
and you could
that
also tell that the very initial stages, commencement stages, we had a few difficulties, but later on it appeared to be a little smoother. And then when... you know, we threw away those who, you know, originated the thing. Then the problems began to compound, and we seem to be having a repeat.
You see, I am not one who believes in reinventing wheels. If you can perfect systems, it's better to do that. Unfortunately, I'm not privy to what the team at the time knew, the 2019. And these are people I hold in high esteem, the Honorable Tetenyo, Dr. Annan. I do not know what the review report told them and what they disclosed to them when they carried out their review. What I also do know for a fact is that the new software that they procured, when we got to the ministry in 2013, we maintained it, we perfected it every year, and Dr. Tabuatin's team. And remember that we also had a supervisory body which was known as the Technical Working Committee to supervise the CSSPS Secretariat. That is another thing they have done now, where they've taken that away. And I would appeal to them to restore an oversight team to carry out oversight. And it removes the political. If you look at the Technical Working Committee that used to supervise CSSPS, you had WAEC, you had CHAS, you had the national PTAs, represented, you know, the heads were represented. That has been dissolved.
From what he's saying,
no supervisory body.
From what he's saying, there are actually no problems. People who are impatient, and the entry processes, how people will navigate them, appears to be the difficulty and lack of education. So
not at all.
As far as he's concerned, or the education service is concerned, there don't appear to be any problems.
No, not at all. Not at all. I can confirm to you, and I've done checks, you know that I worked there for many years, so I have unimpeachable sources. He knows that the system crashed when they asked applicants to go and do the self-placement. The system crashed. He can confirm that to you. And that's why the GS Director General had to issue a statement that they are suspending the self-placement for a while. The initial timeline was that it will be restored last Thursday.
Right.
They couldn't meet it. The system crashed. He can also confirm that there was corruption. Persons could enter the system, drop somebody who has been placed at Achimota, for example, and replace the person. And we are hearing figures of 5,000 cedis, 10,000 cedis.
I mean, is that new?
No, it's new. That particular, the ability to enter the system, change, remove somebody who's been placed, and all, it has never happened when we were in the Ministry of Education.
When I heard news about persons who were claiming they could place people in their choice schools, and that you pay this amount of money and all of that, I wanted us to be able to confirm that indeed they've been able to do it for one or two people before we could make categorical statement. Otherwise, I thought that was just 419 pure, because a lot of these things go on.
It's happened before.
Okay.
Even when he was the deputy minister.
Okay.
You see, it's not everything that you can come to this platform and just mention without holding the evidence.
I'm hearing this for the first time. I wish you brought it to attention.
Right,
but
let's have you conclude.
I've confirmed from back-enders, you know, insiders at the ministry who have said that these things were going on, and the system was corrupted. People could just have access. I would say that these portions require some inquiry. We need government to constitute an investigation into these matters. And finally, something, let me conclude. This is very fortuitous. It gives me an opportunity to continue my advocacy against the Public Universities Bill. You recall that in the Public Universities Bill, the Ministry of Education is seeking to introduce a similar system at the tertiary level, what they are calling a centralized admission platform. Look at the mess at the pre-tertiary level. They should leave the tertiary sector as it is. This should remind all of us that the resistance is genuine, is justifiable, there is basis for it.
Okay.
They should not introduce any centralized admission platform at the tertiary level.
Thank you very much. Dr. Tonda, I'll come to you. You note the three critical issues he raises as accounting for this, and you respond to them very briefly. But Kofi, from where you sit, and okay, so Imani has done some really good work about the education area, but this particular system, what do you find are the problems and the solutions, more importantly?
Right, thank you. So this happened because at the point we said, let's take human beings out of the system. And let me put it this way. I don't think personally that as a country, we are incapable of managing the placement of 400,000 kids. I don't think we are incapable of doing that. But we have consistently failed to do it. To that extent, therefore, education being our second highest budget item, we spend more money on education than anything except health. And the Ministry of Education being the largest employer and all the resources, there is no excuse for the people working there to keep failing at this particular thing. So that's a general policy point. And I think some very serious, attention and action must be taken regarding this because it affects everybody. Number two, when the CSSPS, the original system, was introduced, we were around here, okay, it worked. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. I was in touch with some of the people who programmed it, okay, because we were all interested and wanted to see how it was going to work. And they really did some good work. After the first year, second year, things got better. It wasn't perfect. In fact, I remember making the argument that there must by all means be protocol. Because if your father is a headmaster or your father is a Catholic priest or a Methodist priest somewhere, and for some reason he's, whatever. So we're making those arguments, just trying to humanize the system.
And for those of you who have a certain attachment to your alma maters,
you contribute, I remember making that argument, So they were tweaking it and trying to make it, better. It worked. Why I'm saying this is that the point I want to make about why, even though I think we can manage this, we are not being able to manage it. One major point is politics. We inserted our politics and damaged the system. The original system, which was not perfect but very good, and by the way, so far, almost 20 years of running this thing, that original system has been the best. We have about a third software right now, what I'm hearing. The contract has been signed. I don't know whether they have implemented it, but a few years back, I've interacted with this system a number of times. I've interacted with, Okujeto when he was there, and I can say each group, they work hard at the Ministry of Education. But you see, they suffer the sick horse syndrome. When you are traveling with a sick horse, you spend a lot of your energy managing the horse instead of making progress on your journey. They spend too much time on the software we should have made them go forward. And part of the reason is because of politics. They cleared Dr. Samsumwe's system, which was the best so far, which was owned by the government of Ghana, and which was really doing the job. Then you bring in, and everything they've brought since then has been inferior. My biggest problem with the present administration is that knowing this was going to happen, I think not enough attention was given to make sure we won't end up with the same problems we've been having for the past almost 20 years. All right? So that must be clear. Then the other thing is policy. Look, he's reading how many spaces are in Ghana National and how many people are applying for Ghana National. The problem is not the impatience of people, parents and students. All parents and students have to do is pick their choices, write their exams, pass their exams. And what the system has to do is place them fairly. You can't give people everything they want, but give them what they deserve. And I remember writing that, look, when we wrote our commentaries and other things, the results were on the wall. Okay? All you need to do is, look, put this thing on the website. I've been saying this from day one because it's transparent. I'm saying this publicly. The reason why they are not putting it on the website, making it transparent, is because people want to intervene and interfere with this process. And Yamson, you are right. I know cases where people were supposed to have been placed and taken out, in and out, all the time from your time. Sometimes you don't get to know these things. Oh, really? Okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to the CSSPS place. It was like a marketplace. All right? So sometimes you'll be like, go and find the hard evidence. I don't have time to do that. I've had my personal problems. Other people, you're amazed how many people come to us. I don't know why they think we can change things. Yeah. You know, but the problem is, it is the way it is because people there seek rent. This is their cocoa season. So let's say it as it is. If this thing is dehumanized, if it is removed from the system, and let me tell you what can be done. Tell me why it cannot be done. Before the exams are written, every school is there. If PRESEC has 500 places, PRESEC has declared 500 places. This is what it is. We all see it. The cutoff point is there. When people pass, they are placed there. And you see the index number and their raw scores and whatever it is. You know what? In the previous system, and I've spoken to the people who programmed it, they had what they call the replacement algorithm.
Yep.
All right? So what you were saying about
displacement.
Yeah,
displacement algorithm.
That a merge group.
Yeah. What you are talking about when you say people picked and they got 500, and so that is it, it's finished. No. If somebody picked second choice and got 600, they displace this person, and that person goes to the second choice.
I thought that's the same thing here.
I thought you were rather saying that when it's full, it's full.
No, it's exactly what
Okay, good.
Like this is the bottom.
Yeah, then I agree with you.
Yeah.
Point I want to make is displacement algorithm is basic programming. So my issue is, let us not make a mystery of the placement system. It can be done. It can be done fairly. It can be done transparently to the point where if my daughter does not get Wesley Girls, and I go and see that everybody who got Wesley Girls did better than my daughter, I don't have a case.
Right.
And I think that's where we must go. The other issue of policy is free SHS has compounded this thing. All right? And I return to the point we made. If you go to the US, go to the UK, go to wherever, free education at the secondary level is day. You are posted to a day school in your area.
Those of you who are still encountering some problems or have had your choice not giving you and so on, male sent to female school and so on, let's have your concerns and we'll have Dr. Tando address them directly for you. Yes.
So I think going forward, because until we create more quality schools, and I agree and I support what President Kufuor did when he was around the model school things and putting resources, at least every region must have at least 2 or 3 day high quality schools. Post people to a school in their district or in their region day. Those who want to go to boarding school should go and pay.
But those already exist. If you went to the Volta region, you know, I mean, Mauli. I mean, that's the thing. People know where they can go. If you went to the Upper East region, you know it's Navasco, Big Balls, those places. You
so
know?
we should be growing
so
that.
they are there everywhere.
No, I'm saying that, I agree. We should be growing that, and the policy must be based on that. What I mean is this. If you are going to be part of free SHS, you should expect that you will be posted to a day school in your district or at least in your region. That's what government has to do.
If we have completed the community day schools.
You know, and let's focus on creating quality. You see, we have a few quality schools and we are burdening them. And I said it here, that if we don't take care, we reduce them to the level of everybody.
We are burdening them, but are we also not counseling our children? So you have almost 40,000, is it?
Counsel our children not to choosing
one school.
Listen, Samson.
And you would find that they come from all over the country.
Yes, hold on. Let me make my point. See, this thing about counseling our children, I insist. I will never counsel my child not to seek the best.
Yes.
What I'll tell my child is that go and compete, seek the best, and if you make it, nobody should remove you. So that is not an issue. The problem is not with parents and kids. Okay. The problem is we should have a Wesley Girls in Accra and everywhere. And that is the difference between policy and choice. People can choose what they want to choose. If you live in Navrongo and you want to come to Accra Academy and you've chosen to come, pay your way and come.
Okay, interesting. But there we may maybe differ a bit because, look, I have a girl who was getting ready for this and I had to take time and assess her strengths. And I said, look, within this community, there's a school that you can get, and it is not a bad school, it's good. And when you go there and you are studious, you can go to any university you want to go to. And that's the most important thing, okay? Guess where I came from to University of Ghana.
But that council is good.
No, it's
Right,
good.
so,
but that council is good.
Doc, we'll come
politics
to
must be
the
there.
3 issues that he mentions, and Kofi Bento's concerns as well, because you are here to answer everybody's concern. Right, so...
I'm here to contribute.
Yes, Doc. No, you are not here to contribute.
Both ways. You contribute, but you need to
your
answer
job.
the question.
But what we are doing here,
I get
everything
that.
we are doing here
Yes.
is really for the betterment of Ghana.
Yes, and you are
right?
giving very good education,
and
without
so
which
that's
there would have been a
what-
huge deficit in the discussion. Thank you very much. Now, Doc, let's have your
See,
take.
Samson, just a quick one on what you just said. For me, I believe that I'm capable of doing every single thing on this earth.
Yeah.
And I think that that inner drive should not be killed in any way. Absolutely. But what you said is valid to a certain point, in the sense that, look, here we are, people need to be guided and guarded as well, so that if we give the right education to our people, if we go back to basics and have teachers who can actually take charge of students, counsel them, get sometimes even parents involved to understand the dynamics, such that the child can actually do a self-assessment and say that, look, looking at my strengths, even though I want A, B, C, I think B will be the best for me. That is a different thing. But if we try to put them in a situation where we say that, look, you know what, Wesley girls is too high for you. We don't think you can get there. We are killing their inner drive.
That should not be the way.
So both ways, I think we should juggle the two alongside. But that inner drive should always be maintained. You see, today, if I were still in school, what I did back in the days, I would have done same. Let me tell you, when I was going to go to secondary school, common entrance, I insisted that all 3 choices should be St. Augustine's College. That was my decision. The teachers in the school were trying to tell me to pick some other stuff. I wouldn't budge. I don't know if probably they may have erased something, because I remember at the time we used to fill with pencil. But I still insisted and wanted to see. Not that they doubted my ability, but they felt that at least I should have another choice. Lower 6 to upper 6, to 6th form, Form 5 to 6th form, sorry. I went through the same exercise. I insisted that it is going to be Augustine's 1, 2, 3. They wouldn't budge. Finally, you know what I did? With all due respect to my brother from Presec, I chose Presec and Achimota as my 2nd and 3rd. Not because
sacrilegious.
Not because I hated them, but I still believe that, look, whatever it is,
I need to be won't be available to you as 2nd and 3rd anyway.
Yes, but whatever it is, if you look at that bracket, it has a certain, in quotes, connotation when it comes to the rankings.
Right.
And I believe that this is where I belong. So for me, those aspects of life, we should still encourage people to do it. That's self-drive. We should never kill it.
Okay.
But back to some of these issues here. You see, I think we have created a problem for ourselves. Education transparency, I think these two, we haven't really perfected them. And of course, Kofi has spoken about the political aspect. We need to get people to understand some of these things, even before the date of placement and all that. We've been practicing this for 14 years, and we still haven't perfected it. And it is these same problems we keep rehashing on a yearly basis. What is wrong with us as a people?
I think that there's something to be said for teachers and managers of the education system. When your child is going to choose the schools, they actually require the parents to lead that process.
Yes.
And they don't do it without the parents. So the parents have also, may not have, as it were, carried their obligations correctly.
No, you see, the issue here is that...
If I may, because your point is to public sensitization.
That is one.
And then also the education of the user, which is the student.
Yes.
And the education of the guider, which is the parent
Yes.
and the school.
That is done.
And we do a lot.
No, hold on. You see, there are activities that are done pre.
Yes.
So these are the sets that you do before they pick.
Yes.
Now, what I'm talking about is the second leg, where before you do the placement, you come out to all of us, tell us publicly, explain the processes like you are doing now. so that people will understand that, look, in this placement arrangement, certain things will be done automatically. This is the first phase. Post the first phase, you have an opportunity to go do self-placement. And if you are going to do self-placement, these are the guidelines. Educate us a month or two before we get there, so that the parents themselves will be psyched up and understand what is going on.
As far as I'm concerned, I don't know if this is done across board, but as far as I'm concerned, the experience I told you about, this education was given.
No, let me
the
give you
very
an
start,
example.
at the school. Before you chose, yes, at the school.
No,
we are saying
no.
they gave this education.
He is making the point about after the students have chosen, you know, and before the CSSPS system is outdoor in terms of placement,
right?
That we should psych people up that this is the process we are going through in terms of
I'm saying that I got that education
at the
school at the very start.
No,
at the school.
you
are choosing, and after you choose, when the results are in, this is what you should expect, and that if you do not make this or get that, you will have to do self-placement.
Yes.
I got that education. That's what I'm
you see,
saying.
Samson, you see, with all due respect, you may be in a certain privileged
I'm saying
position.
it may not be across
Yes.
board.
You see, you remember not too long ago, we had this famous thing, Casape. It was a funny thing on social media. It was being played on radio, computer. They are going to catch it. And it tells you that down within our communities, people haven't understood what was happening. If you listen to that clip very well, and these are the things, because we keep rehashing the same problems over and over.
All right.
Sometimes the problems could even be that a mail has been placed somewhere, either out of erroneous filling of the form themselves, or the system itself has its own problems. So we need to get these things clear. And then transparency. I will wish that, look, if we want to take some of the human elements away, we start pasting the raw results of people who have been admitted on the notice board, in the schools, together with the list of people who have been admitted. After all, when we were going to secondary school,
but that's how it used to be. I don't know why it changed.
All these things should happen.
And by the way, communication is important. I mean, Rodney Nkrumah has been putting some things on Facebook. It's very useful. It releases a lot of attention. And I hear some of the notices are on school boards.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Why are you not putting these things on a website where you can now say it is here
and publicize it? Let the local radio stations
let me respond to that question first. Why the non-publicity, quote unquote, alleged?
Well, we have a couple of things that we also need to consider. We are now.
And you have to be very brief with your answers because we have a lot of questions.
Sure, but I need to be able to at least answer this, and I appreciate the time factor. One, you are also dealing with, if I put your daughter up and put your daughter up, there are issues of psychology.
Put index number and everything else there. There's no issue.
Well, they have done all these years. That is there, right? But at the same time, if I go to your school, I know your index number. We all know each other's index.
There is no issue with that.
But what I'm saying is,
results are always published.
It's always done.
Okay, guys, thank you. Allow us to turn that.
Yes,
I get you.
Thank you. So what I'm saying is that, there are, when you go to the schools, like you said, they are pasted. These are the students who got into the school. These were their aggregates. These were their raw scores. These were the programs that they got into. So that is done. But I would like to quickly answer some of the major issues that came up. I would like to start with the 30% public equity policy. It is because of that child in the FECPOME that 30% equity is important in your own constituency. Because that child does not usually have the same competitive advantage to get into PRESEC.
Yeah, but
and so, Honorable, if I may.
Those kids that Jojo Kovna did a story, they were using stones as computer mouses.
Yes.
No, but Doc, you see what you say, he agrees with you.
I agree with you, but I'm saying the quota.
If I may, right?
Because of the
I was going to say computer mice.
Yes. Let me.
Sorry, that's bad.
Thank you. If I may. Still in this country, in terms of quantum of students, almost 70% of our students go to public schools. The percentage of private schools in Accra may be high because a lot of us, including yourself and myself, may have the opportunity to pay. But when we get to Dofekpome, we get to Goso, most people don't have that opportunity. And so it may be skewed in terms of presenting it that 74 or 75% are public. Because if you look at nationwide, 70 to 71% of the children are coming from public schools. So the policy is such.
I thought he said that's not the case now.
Yeah, it is still the case. You know, it's still the case. And the
because
data
for
is
him,
there.
the general position is that about 60% of the schools
And now private.
are now private.
Schools,
let me give you some
schools,
stats.
And here
you
in
know,
Accra, over 70%.
Let me help them.
He's talking about schools, but you can't compare schools to quantum of kids.
Okay.
Right?
He's looking at the quantum.
Right, because and I think it is you know, it will be disingenuous. Right? Let me.
No, it's an important point.
Please.
Something, it's an important point. Look,
you know,
when you nationalize the statistics,
What do you
get it
get?
wrong. When you regionalize it, it's skewed.
Yeah.
What he's saying is right. What he's at the
must go
national
into-
level, it
yeah.
is this way. But on Ghana is 52% urbanized.
Yeah.
In urban areas, the preponderance of kids are going to private schools, including private schools for the poor.
Which is why it's not the case.
I have all the information.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you disaggregate the data,
Disaggregate it.
Thank you.
You've seen
Disaggregate,
the-
fix right.
Look at the EMIS.
Let me complete this
I can give you that
answer.
information.
Let me complete
So
this
don't
response,
nationalize it.
and then I'll get on the phone lines and speak to those who originated all of this and give us a solution to a problem that we don't seem to be able
Including
to.
the name that we use now.
That's the person I'm talking about.
And thank you very much. See, we also need to be sincere with ourselves. We need to be sincere with ourselves as a country, because what happens is that Honorable Okujeto, yourself, Kofi Bento, Doc, and myself, we may have the opportunity for the first 9 years to put our children through private schools, but then all those 721 schools are public institutions. But for the first 9 years, because we have access to resource, we advantage ourselves. And then when it comes time for senior high school, all of a sudden we want to shift the public kids out of the senior high school system, which is unfair. I think we need to be clear, because then usually what happens is those kids sometimes are the ones who will go to the profiteering private high schools where they don't even have the money to pay.
Okay.
So we need to be fair on that.
Right.
Then the last
The
point,
change of software,
Wait,
and
hold on.
change of personnel.
Yeah. So change of software, change of personnel.
Yes.
We'll come to that. And there are some people who have questions and they need solutions to. Someone is asking that my sister wanted to be placed in a technical school, but was placed in a regular SHS. She wants to change it. What should we do? Please help us. Farouk Abdallah from Seshwi. We also. Dr. Charles Rekubrobe says that the theoretical effect CSSPS is thrown off gear from the get-go by the abusive intrusion of protocol allocation, which can sometimes place more than 50%. This can be true. Tell me this is not true.
it's not true.
Which can sometimes place more than 50% of vacancies in the choicest schools to walls of cronies before the system kicks in. This will be anathema, a sin that cannot be forgiven if this is proving to be true.
It's not true.
But let me go
we are
on the
all very
phone
aware.
lines now, and let's get to speak to Professor Somwa, Professor Clement Somwa, IT consultant and president, Christ Apostolic University College. Professor Somwa is an IT consultant who has worked in both the USA and Ghana on several IT projects over the past 35 years. He developed the computer algorithm for the CSSPS. He was involved from the conceptual design to detailed design, development, and implementation of the first version of the system. Thank you very much for joining us, Prof. Hello, Prof.
Hello?
Yes, thank you very much. If you can completely kill the volume of the system by you, either radio or television, and then let's engage directly, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. That's good.
Okay.
Right. So from where you sit, What do you find to be the problem and the solution?
Okay, let me tell you what the problems are and what the way to go.
Okay.
Now, to develop a good placement software, you need more than 3 months. The short term they have used to develop the software, you cannot develop a good package. I'm being honest with you.
Okay.
That's the first thing. Number two, before you implement any software, we must make sure it really works. There are no bugs in it. And it has been thoroughly tested. The first one we did, we took about a year of collecting data and testing thoroughly in conjunction with the TWC, which is the Technical Working Committee. I understand it's been dissolved now. That's a very bad idea. It should be restored. Then number two, which is the most important thing, there is too much human interference with the system. This so-called protocol should be removed. During our time, it was almost completely non-existent. We refuse to accept protocol. Now it is the order of the day. And as much as 20 to 30% of the admissions are protocol, this is not right for the nation. There should be transparency, there should be openness, and people who have done well should get the opportunity to go to schools of their choice if they qualify. Number three, the security in the software must make sure that it is very good and people cannot go through the back door and interfere with the placement. Once it has been done, that's it. And if the security is not good, we must make sure that the security is good.
Is that ever possible?
Yes. You can have very good security. If you see, knowledge is not in the head of one person. If it's not your expertise and you've been given the contract, you can contact people or consult people and they can assist. Then the next thing is that to really make sure that there's fairness, there should be openness and transparency. The results should be published on the notice board of every single secondary school.
Okay.
And we should separate the one for the public schools from the one for the others. So that if we say that 30%, by the way, during our time, we did not accept the 30%. We felt it was too high. We had an alternative. We had what we call the scaling factor. All the JHS in the country were divided into 10 categories, from the least privilege to the highest privilege. And the marks were slightly adjusted from 10% to 0% addition based on the level of your privilege as a JHS. We used some data that was compiled by the USAID, and it worked very well. So if you come from a village, Brahabebome, where transportation is difficult, no electricity, and you do well and you get say 300 and your mark is adjusted by 10%, it goes to 330, you'll be able to get into Atmota over somebody who got 310. And it worked very well. The scaling factor worked very well. And we monitored it. We went to the schools and we realized those people that came in from the remote areas that got into, say, Presec and so I went particularly to St. Peter's. They were performing very well. What I'm saying, this is not something you rush to do. We have a tendency in this country to rush to do things. It is wrong. Let us take our time and do excellent job, test it very well before we implement it.
What do you think may have gone wrong with what you pioneered, so to speak? And well, I've done my checks. I've done my checks, and my checks reveal that you and your team were the most experienced hands that we could ever get, because each one of you had upwards of 20 years under your belt for this particular system, and was taken away from you and given to people who barely had a decade or even 5 years experience to run them. You had, for example, encrypted the data received from WAEC such that no GES people can interface with the data. What have you discovered may have gone wrong since you were taking off in 2009?
In fact, when we were taking off, The problem is that nobody gave us any technical reason why we should be taking off, number one. Number two, we were not given the project just on a silver platter. There was national competitive bidding, and we won. If they are going to do it again, we don't care, but let us be open and have national competitive bidding and choose the best people in the country to do it. We should stop this idea of just taking a project and giving it to our favorites. It's wrong as a nation. We should stop that.
Okay.
Get the best people to do the job. Open it up, advertise, let them compete, and select the best. That's the way I think we should do things.
Do you think that those
if you
who
have something that is working, don't throw it away.
Okay.
If you have challenges, document it and let the people improve upon it.
Do you think that those who have subsequently handled it do not know their way about the software that you developed for the state, and this belongs to the state?
Yeah, but they didn't consult. So all the knowledge and the experience we have acquired, we just threw it away, which is wrong. Other countries don't do that. You build upon it. Even if you think you want to take new people, you can even engage us as consultants to advise them to say, oh, this is one area we had a problem, and this is the way we went about it. We can all work together. It is not NDC, it is not NPP, it is Ghana, our nation, and we must work together to accomplish something good for the country.
But by the system you introduced, was there ever going to be a self-placement, or that the system itself was going to do it automatically until the end?
Oh, yeah, we no, the self-placement, our time, you see, we didn't have the number of students they have at this particular time. So it wasn't as serious a challenge at that time as it is. But if we were to have this problem, we have addressed it. See, what we normally do during our time is that when there's a problem, we discuss it with all the stakeholders.
All right.
WAEC, CHAS, the head teachers in secondary, DHS, and all their parents, PTAs, and so on. And then once we understand the problem, then we come up with possible solutions.
Okay.
And we find the best way to solve the problem.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Clement Somwa, IT consultant and president, Christ Apostolic University College, pioneers of the CSSPS that we're talking about. So I want us to finish this. We have to finish it at this point before we go for a break. Then when we come back, we're going to abandoned hospitals, which we'll spend about some 30 minutes dealing with, and then we plunge into the corruption debate for the last hour. Practical solutions for those who are asking questions. They wanted to go to a technical school. They have been placed in a regular school. How do they change that?
Well, we have every student has the opportunity.
But hold on, but the other question is, how did it even happen, based on your narrative?
The software is not working.
Yes.
No, the software, see, the idea that the software is not working, you know, it's, there is you have to understand that the system works, right? So this idea that the system is not working is really oversensitive.
So let's get to the solution.
How did it happen?
Let me,
let me ask a question.
If I may.
The solution to Farouk.
See, Honorable has access to the Ministry of Education. He was at the Ministry of Education for a long time. So he himself knows, you know, the challenges that he himself presided over.
Can you go to my
So, and we all know
Farouk,
that in 2017.
Answer Farouk's,
okay,
Farouk's
let me get to Farouk first.
How do they change that?
Farouk, you can always go and seek for a transfer to a new school.
You can always do
when
that.
you are placed in a school, it doesn't mean that you are stuck in that school.
Okay.
And so
Daniel,
Farouk is able to.
Daniel Komagbe, says that my nephew didn't choose University Practice Senior High School, but was giving.
That is not possible. That means your nephew, when my nephew, in all of his 5 choices, he couldn't get into any school. They had to do self-placement. The system will never, and we need to, you know, the system will never place someone into a school that they didn't
You heard
choose.
Prof. Somwa confirm some of the views that have been expressed by Kofi Bentil and particularly Dr. Yancey about the publication.
Yes. I want to say this. The idea that the software was given, or the project was given to a new company in 3 months, it's false. The idea that you cannot go to or look for a new system, it's also really not fair. And this is why, quickly, the first company in this country to make vehicles was Ford with a Model T. But none of us sitting here probably drives a Ford. New companies come, they improve upon existing ideas.
Improve upon.
Oh, yes. And so if you look at the second company that did it, they improved upon Prof's system.
They didn't.
They didn't.
Yes,
We were
they
all
did.
here. No, they didn't.
Okay.
We've been part of this.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Right. And then so there is always improvement. So I think that we and you made
3 months to time you introduce a new.
See, the idea is that because the
Is that what you said?
it's
False.
It's false.
3 months to time.
It is false.
How long was it? How long was the time? How long was the time, or there was no any reintroduction of a new software?
There's a new software.
Honorable, there is an introduction of a new
there's
software.
a new software.
Okay, how
It
long?
kicked
How
in
long did it
2020.
Hold on. Honorable has been at the ministry, so he knows that internal processes take a while. You may think that to the public it may seem right, but there's
in fact what you said is false. It's not false.
It is false. It is false, and the reason why
Why?
I'm saying
Because you started the procurement process, 6 months ago.
the process takes time, right? But we also do know that we also do know, for example, that if you have a system that there are some challenges, you need to improve it.
Okay.
He knows because he has access.
Okay.
He knows that
So
the
all
previous
those who
system
have
broke
problems,
down
what
a couple
should
of
they do?
times.
All those who have problems.
Anybody who has a
Last
problem,
question.
anybody who has a problem, we have a call center that has been set up, and the number is 030-700-7777.
Go over that again.
030-700-7777. Now, also in all of the regional capitals, we have solution centers.
Solution centers.
Yes. Once people go to the solution center, we record their challenges, and then it is able.
Where do
to
they
be
find the
corrected.
solution centers in the regions?
Well, I will give you some of them, and most of them, if you go to here in Accra, it is at the Independence Square.
Okay.
If you go to Kumasi, Jackson Park, so all the different regional centers.
Can you give us one website where all this information is?
Yes.
Okay.
That, or you can find all of that at the cssps.gov.gh or cssps.org. And then also on the Ghana Education Service. But if anybody calls any of the call center, we have people there.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm sorry, but we are unable to continue with this discussion here. It certainly will continue some other time. Dr. Kwabena Bempatando, thank you very much. Acting Deputy Director General, Ghana Education Service. Thank you very much. You take leave of us, and someone else takes his seat. We'll be right back.
With Article 280, Clause 3 of the Constitution 1992. The government on Friday and its white paper on the Ayawaso West Wogon Commission of Inquiry. The commission was established on February 8, 2019 by President Akufo-Addo to make a full, faithful, and impartial inquiry into the circumstances of and establish the 31st of January 2019. The Commission submitted its report on 14th March 2019 to the President. After a careful study, the government has issued a white paper, which, together with the report itself, it has elected to publish in accordance with the Constitution. The government expresses its gratitude to the team who issued their Emrafren white paper, Commission report. Na ni mienu nyinaa na ban ede akose yen gazette na yen publish yen mong de ruma ubiante.
You're welcome back. So you just heard the Information Minister, Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, releasing what should be the white paper or the report of the Emil Short Commission of Inquiry into the disturbances in the by-election at Ayawaso. So now government has published it, and so we'll get to all get to know what is in there. So the government says it has submitted for gazetting and publication the report and white paper on the Ayawaso West Wuogon Commission of Inquiry, according to the Minister of Information. This is in accordance with Article 280, Clause 3 of the Constitution. And as you know, the commission was established to look into a very serious matter. The Commission of Inquiry on March 14, 2019, submitted its report to the President. Why is it taking a lot of public pressure for this to be done at this point? I suppose that's also one of the questions that will be asked. But let's get to abandoned hospitals. And we'll spend some 30 minutes on this very important issue also. But it does appear that if there's no corruption, most of these matters will not happen. So we'll dedicate the next full hour to the matter of corruption. Now, let's listen to Kwabena Minta Akando, ranking member on health, the minority in Parliament, accusing government of abandoning the project. And then we'll hear Kweku Ajiman Menu, the Minister of Health, respond to them.
The so-called money, what have they used that money for? Have you seen any continuity as far as this project is concerned? Please, they should stop those things. Have you seen anything that they have added since they came to power? They should stop telling us stories. After borrowing over 80 billion. I mean, and almost every day they are borrowing in Parliament. All of us here are in Parliament. We know what is going on. Assuming without admitting that there was something we should do and we didn't do, and they have convinced people to come to site for 3 years, we should be seeing the facilities in full operation. Yes. That is what we need. Bottom line is a facility in operation.
We realized that the whole contract sum of the 7 package, $175 million, was getting exhausted. It was left with only $38 million to draw. And they had completed only one. But honestly, if we have borrowed money for the state to do work, and you could easily have evidence to say that it is not likely we will have value for money, I think there was a need for you to look at it before you continue work. Other than that, 30 million couldn't have completed the rest. So where will you find money to put back in? Work has not been completed. We've had discussions, and the conclusions aren't in yet. But we have got to go ahead from government that the contractor should continue with 3, that we're getting close to completion.
Right. So as we know that in actual fact, over $1 billion, $1 billion United States dollars has been spent on developing hospital infrastructure. And more particularly, the reference is to the Mahama administration. And yet, the understanding now is that some of these were completed and inaugurated, but they are still not in operation. So what exactly is the problem? We are joined by Kwame Amponsa Safo. He is architect, CIPMU Infrastructure Directorate of the Ministry of Health. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Great. So on this occasion, let me start with the minority member of parliament. Your group on the health subcommittee, right, decided to do a tour, visit some of these facilities. Why did they have to do it as a minority instead of doing it as the health subcommittee? So that, you know, as we say, it would be balanced. What happened?
Well, thank you very much. I have spoken to my colleague, who is ranking member on the committee, the Honorable Minta Akando, and he informs me that when the idea was mooted, it didn't appear a comfortable idea for the entire committee. And so the minority section of the committee decided to embark on the tour. And you do know that because of the nature of our politics, unfortunately, extremely partisan. And I think that after 25 years of this fourth Republican democracy, it is time to de-emphasize the extreme partisanship and sometimes blinded partisanship. Elsewhere, you have Congress Committee, House of Commons Committee, who work in tandem when it comes to the national interest. And you've seen even the ongoing Brexit debate. You've seen the rebellion within the Conservative Party, and you see that Conservative members of Parliament will be voting against either British Prime Minister May or British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, because they are looking at the national interest, what really is essential to their constituents. But here, it does appear that because of the, if you like, governance architecture, where the president is so powerful and overbearing, and the parliamentary arm of the ruling party, members of parliament always want to catch the eye of the president. They don't want to step on toes. They don't want to be in the bad books of the president. So there is this extreme partisanship. But I must say that what the minority members have done is commendable, is dynamic. You have seen such solo efforts elsewhere as well. I mean, when John McCain died, God bless his soul, some of the tributes that came from all over was some of his solo efforts. He would voluntarily, as a congressman, go to even war zones, interact with generals, see exactly how American foreign policy is impacting on the ground. We've seen Jeremy Corbyn, for example, go to Palestine, solo effort, as a member of the British House of Commons, to see what the Israeli intervention or the Middle East policies, how it is impacting on Palestinians and all of that. And he's made that even a cause, which over the years, over 2 decades, he has consistently, pushed. You've seen recently Ima Umar, and all the furore about, visiting the Middle East, going to Palestine, and all of that. So members of parliament take up such courses all over the world.
And what informed this? And coincidentally, one of the hospitals that we are told was completed in 2015, we spent in excess of $860 million, okay, on it. It's in your region. It's in your North Tongue constituency, the Volo village.
Yeah, the Samsung Digital Village.
So what's going on?
Yeah.
And why did you have to go to these places, these facilities?
So I just thought that I conclude by clearing that notion that probably this was mischievous. I mean, there's no mischief at all. This is standard practice where you have strong parliaments, where democracy works. I have gone through the entire standing orders on committees from standing order 151 to 214, and nothing frowns upon the conduct of my colleagues on the health committee. And we actually ought to commend them, for taking time off their own resources to do what they have done, especially when it's about human life.
We are talking about, let me correct myself, I meant to say 60,000,
yes,
860,000.
We are talking about, in total, more than $1 billion of hospitals. Look, they went to the Kumengu Hospital, which at 2016 was 65% complete, a 120-bed capacity. We all know, and I'm glad Dr. Yamson is here, the no-bed syndrome, which we are all worried about. Only a few weeks ago, a colleague of mine who worked with me, the police officer who was assigned to me when I was deputy minister, calls me that he has crisis, the wife has been rushed to Kolebu, and she has to be admitted, no bed. I had to be making frantic calls. At the end of the day, we had to find some space for him to take the wife to the polyclinic near Kolebu, Mamprobi Polyclinic. So we all leave these things. We leave it. And when you visit hospital, you visit loved ones, you see their conditions. Sometimes they're sleeping on bare floors and all of that. Meanwhile, according to the estimates that my colleagues on the health committee have carried out, you have about 6,000 beds. If we are to operationalize, complete and operationalize these hospitals, it will bring on stream 6,000 beds. That will have really helped our people. So you ask yourself, what's going on? They went to Fomena Hospital, 85% complete in 2016. It should have been completed by now. That's also a 120-bed hospital. They went to the Tepa Hospital. Within 1 year, 2015 when the project started, by 2016 when we were leaving office, 80% complete. Now we are told that only 5% has been added. I mean, and you ask what's going on. University of Ghana Medical Hospital, when they went there, I mean, I'm told that the whole of Africa, the facilities that that hospital has, is unrivaled.
Of course, we spent over 200 million on it.
Yeah, and yet it's operating below,
$1 million.
Yes,
$1 million, $200 million.
And yet it's operating below 10% capacity. Can you believe that? 10%. It sees less than 10 people a day. Meanwhile, we are in a country of no bed. The Bank of Ghana Hospital, completed, not in use. Then there are so many of them. The 10 polyclinics that President Mahama started, abandoned, Sekendi, Garu, even the Upper West Regional Hospital commissioned a few weeks ago. My in-laws tell me that it's not in use. After the fanfare, the commissioning, jamboree, and all of that, I mean, that's it. So you really wonder why we are doing this to us.
And the polyclinics you speak about are those that put together, there are about 6 of them in Fomena, as you said, Garu, Sekendi, Kumewu, and Abetifi, yeah. we understand. And all of these were supposed to have been completed in 2016.
Yeah.
And we spent in excess of $170 million on them.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've abandoned them. Meanwhile, Samson, Article 35(7) of the Constitution reads, as far as practicable, a government shall continue and execute projects and programs commenced by the previous government. This is what the Constitution says. And you see something, I've been reading some history, and we have not learned as a country.
But you know that provision has been observed more in breach.
Yes, more in
by
breach.
All successive governments.
Perhaps all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But I hold in my hands Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's book, which he authored 2 years after his overthrow. On the 15th of April, 1968, he published this, Dark Days in Ghana. And when you read this book, I mean, you think he's describing situation now. Page 97. So one of the first acts of the NLC was to announce the abandonment of the 7-year development plan. Work was stopped on state enterprises and industries, and they were offered for sale to private investors. Come to page 98. There was to be a 2-year review period. Does it sound familiar? Review period. 2 years. Remember Cocoa Road's review? Review period for 2 years, starting on 1st July 1966, during which there will be proper economic stock taking, quote and unquote. Even NLC supporters must have marveled at the time to be spent on stock taking when the nation was supposed to be in such dire economic trouble. But according to the NLC, this was necessary if Ghana was to be in a position to expect help from the outside world. Page 100. Apart from handing over public operations to private enterprise, the NLC announced drastic cuts in the routes operated by Ghana Airways, the halting of work on the new international airport at Tamale in northern Ghana, and the cancellation of a number of orders for new ships for the state-owned Black Star Line, which has also collapsed. So both Ghana Airways and the Black Star Line were established by my government.
Proceed to the obvious point and state it, and let's move on.
So something you can tell that since 24 February 1966, we have not learned, and we are just going in cycles.
If we have learned, we have learned in wasting the scarce resources.
Wasting scarce resources.
And that's what politicians do to the citizens.
And you see, I think the time has come for us to name and shame political parties, ministers. You see, this broad brush, politicians and everybody. No, name and shame. I believe that there are ministers, when it comes to the budgeting process. I remember Professor Nana Junupoko Ajima she asks, get fund, present an inventory of all outstanding projects and uncompleted projects. And she told us in our budget meeting that that's my priority. We will finish before we start new, especially the school and the trees project and all those projects. I have here the Auditor General's report. That's what I brought it. Page after page, abandoned projects all across the country, in all sectors. Something. The current Minister of Health, if he was any other country, he will have resigned. He has lost every moral justification to continue in that position.
Interesting.
And the president, to the extent that he's not taking action, and this, the media, you've been on this crusade from day one. When this no-bed syndrome, when all these, precious lives were being lost, you started this campaign. What has been the government response? Government gave several timelines. Even the University of Ghana. The University of Ghana.
Well, the University of Ghana Hospital, government has kept to its promise, and like you say, it is operating at what?
Below 10%.
Below 10%.
Below
at 10%. Least. That's a good start.
It is not.
What can I say?
It is not. It's not.
Okay, Kofi says it's not a good start. All of you. Yes, so, Doc, this is where you live. And as the General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, you must be very worried about these developments, because we understand that there were people, for example, who had been recruited already for the purposes of the University of Ghana, hospital, which we are talking about, over $200 million spent on, completed, with facilities that we are told, if they are left there inoperational for a certain period, we will actually pay more. Very expensive facilities. What do you understand is what is going on, and what do you say about the minorities, visit to these facilities as a way of piling pressure on the government to ensure that these things are delivered?
Samson, in fact, this topic is one that anytime you try to discuss it, you ask yourself, what is just wrong with us? See, the minority is complaining. Fair. But they created part of the problems. Because here we are, we have a system that to start a project, you should have done all the feasibility studies around it, including cost and what have you, procure the right people, and if you need to, let's say, go for a loan, you work all the details, you get the loan. So what valuations or evaluations went into some of these projects such that we actually contracted loans, but the buildings or the structures haven't been completed?
No, some have been completed.
No. I mean, we are looking at the entire thing. No, I'm not saying all. Yeah. No, what I'm saying is that...
You're right.
For starters, let's start using those that have been completed, not so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, at least. Let's start.
Okay, fine. Some are ready. But this comment is a general one. Okay. Because let me just break it down this way. You go in for a loan of, say, 40 million. My understanding is that you'd have done all your studies and you've come to a conclusion that that $40 million that you are going for is enough to complete the project. So why should we have a situation where along the line we abandon it, and then we cannot also tell the people of Ghana where the extra monies are or the monies that have not been used are?
But the minority didn't abandon them.
No. I'm not saying you abandoned them. Hold on. You started some of these things. Yeah. Yes. We also know of projects that have actually been brought to the fore, which are out of budget. As a country, we run a system. Parliament will pass a budget into law, the appropriation, saying that, look, spend so much on A, B, C, D. Then politicians, out of your own, in quote, self, deeds that you really want to do, whether for political gain or for whatever gains, you go out there and sometimes you just meet a community, you promise them, the next day you go break sword, you start something. No, hold on.
Do we need the hospitals or not?
No, hold on. If you need them, then do proper planning. Put them in your budget that, look, as a country, this is our development plan for the health sector. This year, we are going to build, let's say, 50 or 20 or 100, and these are the locations. The next year, this is what we are going to do. Commit the right resources and provide them. But it shouldn't be on an ad hoc basis, such that you go into a community, you promise, you go and break, the ground, you start something. No, not just you. I'm looking at politics generally. Because this didn't start with NDC. It even predates Rawlings's time. You just read certain things.
No,
and we've carried on to now.
But the records will show, as far as we know them, that there was an aggressive infrastructure project.
Yes.
Particularly for the health sector.
Yes.
That's why you have in excess of $1 billion spent on hospital projects. And most of them, as we understand, were completed and commissioned.
Yes.
And they have been left unused.
Yes.
The facilities there are rotting away.
Okay, so now
that's the question.
Okay, so now let's
even
look at it
if it were for the politics that these projects were done, what should be the priority of a succeeding government?
It is so clear.
Health.
Our constitutional injunction.
Should you politicize the health of the people?
No, per our constitutional injunction, you need to continue with these projects. So if any government comes to power and refuses to continue with some projects, then we have issues. But I was bringing that line in there because when you do things out of budget, then you also create more problems. So you are bound to see some of these things. But fast forward, the projects that have been completed, we have asked that why are these things not being used? And we've gone ahead to state to the whole world and tell government that, look, for the sake of the health of the people of Ghana and the benefits that we can actually derive from making sure that our health sector is well structured and things are running properly, make sure that the ordinary man who is supposed to benefit from same gets that benefit.
When you say we, you are referring to the Ghana Medical Association?
That is one. And then even those of us in the health sector on our own individual private basis.
Okay.
We have also written position letters and communications to all the powers that be about some of these things. So the fact that we need these things are not in doubt at all. The other problem with us is that, you see, having a health facility, a properly so-called one, especially the level of the Legon one, we are talking about quaternary. You know, we have classes. We have quaternary, we have tertiary, we have secondary, primary. The level of skills you need is very important. The structures alone cannot make the hospital. The human factor is important. And we do some of these things without even planning when it comes to training of people. You see, somebody was talking about the Upper West. Yes, it's been commissioned. Technically speaking, all it means is that the contractors have handed over to government. Now, fast forward, because it's a regional hospital, in our setting, it's a secondary, tertiary, depending on how you look at it. You need a certain mix of skills. So when you hear people say that, oh, there are a lot of unemployed, you know, graduates there, these are people who on their own might not be able to man them properly. You need a certain mix.
The government can't find the people who are required to man that hospital.
We do some of these things without the human resource planning attached.
It's done. It's been done.
No.
So
no,
it's already been done. What I mean is that what you need, the most important is the facility, the equipment in there. It's been done.
Yes.
Put the human beings there.
No, but if you haven't trained the human being, if you don't have emergency physicians and you build an emergency room, you think you've done yourself any good. Okay. So the two should work in tandem.
We haven't been advertised.
There's a way to deal with this.
Okay.
No, Kofi, but let me conclude. So, you see, when we are looking at this whole thing, I think that we should begin to tell the politicians that, look, as a people, we are fed up with this approach to life. One, the man in the village or the district where these facilities are located and not being used is actually being deprived of the basic care that he or she could get. It also puts a lot more pressure on the few existing facilities that are supposed to be doing certain things, like example, Kolebu. Because you see, if the periphery is working well, there are some conditions that do not necessarily will have to come to Kolebu to overstretch them in the system. And then we'll end up with the no-bed syndrome and all that. There are other impacts when you look at the economic aspect of it. Look, health is a sector that we can actually generate money as a country, looking at where we find ourselves. Within our sub-region, a lot of the countries don't have well-developed health systems. And they actually come to Ghana for some specialized facilities and services. If the University of Ghana Hospital was in operation properly, look, we could get people from all over Africa coming in.
Health tourism.
Yeah.
And that will bring us extra money.
Okay, thank you. So, Kofi,
see, we need to identify the problem well. It's very frustrating and really very annoying. To put $1 billion of poor people's money, and some of it we've borrowed and we are paying back.
Yes.
We need to get that, number one. Number two, the problem is our politicians are perverse in their thinking. They are driven by procurement. They don't care about providing health care. People are interested in building structures in the name of hospitals. Health care is different from hospital building. It's the same way education provision is different from building schools. So that's the first problem. I'm saying this because the next time we hear any politician from any party trying to tell us they are going to build any new hospital building, we'll all go after that person. That's number one. Number two, Doc, just to handle this thing about, you are right that if you have a quaternary, you need a certain level of skill. I did a study on health tourism. Some people are going to build certain things here to attract people here. There's something called time sharing. That facility there, you can break it up. The fundamental problem is that if the government system does not have it, okay, allow the private guys to use it.
No, but the University of Ghana has never said that they had a problem with the staff. That in fact, as we know, they had completed a process of staffing.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, so back to my point. Wait. I'll lose my train of thought. No, it is important that we focus on providing health care.
That is the ultimate.
Yes, and if the government can provide health care, do it. If you cannot find the people to do it, including importing personnel, it's possible, it's done. We've seen it done in all kinds of different places.
I mean, Ghanaian professionals in the diaspora.
So that focus must be very, 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 very keen. All right? Now, what we need to understand is that, look, at the end of the day, when I was saying something which Doc just confirmed. A doctor needs 2 rooms to practice. He just confirmed it. Practice. If you want to provide healthcare, 2 rooms. My idea is this. Look at where our people are. And look at, you are in the Ghana Medical Society. We know what we can do. And provide those little things, because primary healthcare is more than 50% of the healthcare we need. All right? And then we can avoid this situation of putting all this money out there and not using it. We should focus on providing health care and not necessarily building health institutions. Not that we build them. I like your idea of name and shame and the Auditor General. And he says he's going to do some of these things. I am very interested in who signed those contracts. You were talking about the fact that sometimes we don't finish the project.
But is it really the case that the doctor needs 2 rooms to practice?
No. I have seen it happen in other places.
And forgive me, but are we progressing or we are retrogressing? So, look, the biggest law firms and practitioners in Ghana today started from a garage. Some actually started from their car boots. Today, you can't get a license if you had to start from your garage.
I agree.
Correct?
Yes.
It is because we have gone.
Which is why I was tripping, because see, we have moved from where we should have been. Now we are at quaternary level, and we are not being able to handle it. But we should understand that we have skipped some of the basics. That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we have skipped some of the basics. So we need to fill in those gaps and stop adding on to the problem, because it's cost.
No, for the sake of our viewers and listeners, let's correct this. You see, there are different levels of healthcare. There's primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary.
Yes.
There's no one rule that says that you should finish one before you go to the other, because all the services will be needed along the line.
Complementary.
But the baseline is that at the primary level, you have a lot more of them, because primary healthcare is virtually all around us. Then you move to the secondary, the tertiary, and then the quaternary. So as a country, you could have, say, maybe 1 or 2 centers of excellence, depending on what you have. But that does not mean that at the primary level, you should not have as many as you
Where do you spend your money? So the point I was making is that
Kofi will continue and finish his point, but just a little education briefly. When you say primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary, can you explain them briefly for our viewers and listeners?
Okay.
What do they mean?
Okay, so the primary ones are the basic everyday
treating malaria, cholera.
No, hold on. So basic things.
Very quick.
Yes. Yeah. So basic things. You feel
First
that
aid.
There's something that has happened that you go, baseline stuff. Yes.
Secondary.
Depending on the setting, that primary could sometimes do a lot more, because it's more about prevention and basic curative stuff. So depending on the people who are there, they can sometimes even take on a bit of the secondary activity. When you go to the secondary level, you have situations where complex, not extremely complex, but some surgical procedures, certain things can all happen. Even within the primary, you can have all those things. But a lot of the primary stuff are like daycare, short admissions, stuff like that.
Okay.
Then as you move into the tertiary, you even have situations where the teaching hospital setup actually comes to play, where a lot of referrals are coming in with complex, activities that will have to be done. Then the quaternary is like super specialty. So you are focusing more on, let's say, if it's, let's say, orthopedic surgery, you are now looking at things like only knee replacement, stuff like that.
Okay. All right.
And those are very expensive. See, as you go up the ladder, the cost is also...
Trying to wrap up.
Finish. Yes.
So I'm saying, as a country, we have all these things. Primary health care is more than 50% of what we do. When we have money or what we borrow, we should know how we apportion them. We are at a point where we have quaternary facilities here. Those quaternary facilities, one, you create, like you're saying, the human resource to deal with it. And we do have some of the human resource.
Yes,
if you don't have it, you can actually import, but you build a system where at least timeshare. My issue here is this. Now that we have them, we should develop a system where it is not just the government system that is able to use them. The Ghana Medical Association should go into some sort of a PPP arrangement and have a way where there's timeshare. So people who are qualified or even people who are abroad, people travel to India for surgeries. We have to find a way to use it. But we should start finding a way
PPP
to
arrangement. Is that not what Legon got into and now it became an issue of who owns it?
We should do it right, which is the next thing is, who are those who spent our borrowed money on these things when they hadn't done all this planning? Because all these years that have been there that we've not used it, we've been paying. And by the way, the Legon Hospital, some of the equipment there, the warranties are going off. There are all kinds of things that should have been done by now. We're going to lose that money and never be able to recover them. So
waste, complete
wasted.
Sort of criminal waste.
That is very painful. And I said from the beginning, let's not kid ourselves, because if we don't identify the problem, we won't solve it in future. This is driven by procurement and driven by the fact that when people build these multi-million-dollar edifices, there are benefits here and there. It is for the reason that we need to stop doing these things.
When you say benefits, you mean corruption?
Well, corruption has a part to play.
Let me just add this small bit.
And focus on spreading more primary health, at least secondary health facilities, so people can get
we'll have the very last.
We'll
have him do the last presentation.
You see, the other
on this,
aspect
and
to
then
this
we
is
close
that
this chapter.
when we don't do things within specific time frames, and then probably in the planning activities, we don't plan well. We turn back and say that, look, this is not fit for purpose, this is that, then that means that we need to do variation. And those variations sometimes we even double or triple the initial cost. Meanwhile,
that's the
same
name and shame.
We haven't also had any value from people.
Okay, Mr. Safu, how does the Minister of Health feel about these concerns? And there's a groundswell of these concerns out there in the public. They ask a simple question. Facilities are completed and we can't use them. And yet we go here and we are told no bed, no that.
All right. Thank you, Samson. Basically, there is no facility that has been completed by the Ministry of Health that is not in use. There's no facility like that. The Bank of Ghana thing you are talking about is not under the Ministry of Health. So I think that one of the things the media has to do is to now go into the details to find out who and who owns or builds these facilities.
Okay.
Because you see, when you lump them up, health, and everybody starts attacking the Ministry of Health, it becomes a problem.
Okay.
Port Hospital is part of the things I see here. It's not under Ministry of Health. Now moving on to Honorable Ablakwe's point about the Upper West Region Hospital being finished and not being used. Doctor here would agree with me that when a hospital is completed, you have to go through a process of training, testing the equipment. You understand? So if I finish the hospital today, depending on the complexity of the facility, we can use about 2 months to go through that kind of orientation before we start using the facility. It depends on the political timings, and I'm glad he's a politician sitting here. Sometimes at practical completion, they are so much in a hurry to come and commission when the technical commissioning has not been done. So when they come and do the jamboree, the technical people are still on the ground working. Yet it is out there, we finished and we are not using them. So as we speak...
We had one such report from WA recently. That's what you're referring to.
The emergency room was commissioned by President Mahama before he left office. And the kind health minister also came to finish saying,
recommission.
Because at the time President Mahama commissioned, we didn't have the gadgets in there.
Thank you.
Had to redo the roof and all
I may
that.
lose my thought, so let me proceed. You understand? So there's a certain procedure that we go through to operationalize these facilities. Flash your minds back to Ridge Hospital. President Mahama cut the sword, commissioned it actually on 30th November 2016. We operationalized the facility somewhere around May. You understand?
That was a recommissioning.
No.
There was another commissioning.
No, it wasn't a commissioning.
Okay.
It was the operationalization phase.
I see.
You understand? Because at the point that
another plaque was put there.
Yes, but when you go, you see the difference.
Yeah, but why did we have to do that?
Yeah. Okay, then.
Please, let's not argue about plaques and all. You continue with your presentation.
See, we could have waited, for the full thing to be done. Then we do one thing, and then we move.
Okay.
Same with the UGMC hospital. As of the time, December 2016, the facility wasn't completed. We needed $50 million extra to get the equipment in place, to get the thing up and running.
No, there were equipment there. That was for...
Sorry. No,
not complete.
Not
all. Not all.
Yes, not all.
Not all.
You understand?
No, but factually, we were actually...
I went to the site myself.
Factually, we were also told about generator sets, generating sets that were not available, which were actually sitting there.
Actually there.
No. Some of the things were complete, some were not.
Okay.
Let's agree. That
You see, please, let's get into
So it was not complete.
Yeah, when he says
it was not,
equipment,
wait, it was not
being
complete.
general.
It was not complete, but commissioned.
Yes.
And still in its incomplete state, we are operating it at 10%. So how did we come to start operation when it's incomplete?
Okay, so then it's a big facility. For hospital planning and operationalization, you do not need to go in and start the whole hospital at a go. So you can start with OPD services.
Okay.
Move into your inpatient activities and all that. So once a hospital is finished, if you want to operationalize a part, you can do that.
So why have we not done that?
That's what they have done that you say is not sufficient.
At 10%?
Yeah, 10%.
No, that's Honorable Ablakwe's projection. I don't know where it's getting 10%.
No, I'm aware because Lagos Hospital is...
No. Yes, it is underutilized.
Okay,
but
can you
in terms
tell us
of
the
the figure,
percentage? You are
very difficult to
you are
put
from
the
the
figure
Ministry
on.
of
He just asked my question. So answer it. Sorry, let him answer the question.
So what's the percentage?
I will not hazard against
if you are
No.
disputing the so on what basis are you disputing?
Please.
I will not hazard against it. But
you don't know at what percentage it's operating.
No, I know OPD activities are going on. You understand? But to put a percentage to that, I won't.
You should be able to do that.
No.
If a committee on health is able to do that, then you don't dispute it when you don't have one.
How many people are caring for in a...
Guys, let's allow him.
You went out there looking for a certain product, and so you were able to get your 10% or whatever you call it. I have not done that analysis, but I am telling you that OPD services are in operation. If that is not enough, then it's a discussion for another day. You understand? So let us get that into perspective.
Okay.
Now, with regards to their power, with Legon, the problem was that we had power coming to the university campus already. As part of this project, it was recommended that we needed a new power station just for the hospital. And I think that in this particular instance, the minister got mixed up with the generator and then the power issue. So as of the time that he was speaking, it was really about the substation dedicated to the hospital, which we didn't have. So if you had to run the hospital, then you were going to run them on generators. Who has that money to buy the diesel for the period that you'll be running 24/7? So let's get the issues, very clear. Now, Honorable Ablakwe,
so how far are we with providing that, separate power station for it to run?
It's another phase 2, which is ongoing.
All right.
Okay. Now, with regards
expected to complete when?
By close of year.
Close of 2019.
No, sorry. Close of 2020. We should get
close of 2020.
Yes. Because what is happening is that we have a roadmap. Okay. A roadmap that is that gives us a schedule as to how we want to operationalize the facility. Okay. So that roadmap, by the end of the year, every aspect of by the end of 2020, every aspect of the hospital will be functioning.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that we'll partially operationalize the hospital at the end of 2020.
By the end of 2020, every aspect
will be fully operational.
Exactly.
Okay.
He's not a politician, so maybe...
Now you spoke about warranties. Okay. It is true. What you are saying is clearly true that we had difficulties with the warranties. Once the phase 2 agreement was signed, the contractor came in and he's been able to get all the major suppliers to come back and renew the warranties on this system. So those that even went bad, the reagents that went bad and all that, I mean, they are prepared to give us, it's business, you understand? So if you go to Lagos, yes, at a cost, but of course, it's negotiable, you understand?
Okay, but it's still money.
Oh, it's still
as
money.
a state, you see, not your person, but as a state, you've wasted those resources.
Yeah, right. So proceed.
Okay. So I mean, the warranties are not completely lost as it's being
suggested.
Suggested. Okay. In terms of the 10 polyclinics, they've been commissioned and handed over, and they are in use in the central region. If you remember, we went to commission one of them at Etisunkwa, and we were stoned. And the reason for stoning was that the project started with a particular administration, and another administration was coming to commission it. So, I mean, there was a scaffold. They took the intervention of Honorable Atuforsen, to calm tempers down. So it is never true that the 10 polyclinics have also been finished and they are not in use. Just last week, we went there to do the final acceptance because after practical acceptance, you need to go through a certain process to get the final acceptance. So those things are done. And clearly, nobody in the Ministry of Health is happy, about the fact that there are projects that are ongoing that have been, abandoned or that kind of thing. Okay. We'll move now to the Kumewu.
I heard the chief complain.
Yes. Yes. We'll move down to Kumewu. Now, the Kumewu and then Formina situation is actually a sad situation for all of us. And the reason why it is a sad situation is that they had gotten to an appreciable level of completion, on all these facilities. Now,
that's in 2016.
Yeah, in August 2016, the contractor wrote to the Ministry of Health and to the Ministry of Finance that the loan was expiring at the end of December 2016. So we should extend it so that the LC is still active, for the project to continue once the cut-off dates approached. Nothing came out of the Ministry of Finance. Again, in December 2016, we wrote back. We didn't hear anything. Okay. So when the new administration came and tried doing an audit, they kind of alarmed that, okay, you have a project that's 175 million. As we speak, there is close to 39 million left. And then you had fully completed one, but the others had, several stages of completion. In that case, I mean, for any of us here, you don't want to do an inquiry into that. I think the point of departure between those of us at the Ministry of Health and those at the Ministry of Finance was the approach. In the minds of the Ministry of Health, let us do a side-by-side thing so that we don't get to this situation we are in now. But Ministry of Finance also felt that, oh no, let's clear it, give it a clean bill of health before we move on. And well, as to whichever approach was good, the fruits are there for all of us to see. You understand? Fortunately, the audit is being completed. As far as I'm concerned, I've seen the draft. There were no adverse findings in terms of, money chopping or whatever we may decide to call it. The point of the matter now is that, okay, we have 39 million. What can we do with the 39 million? So last week, actually 2 weeks ago, we met with the contractors, and then the agreement then was that we should go around at least the 3 that were far advanced, Kumewu, Formina, and then the Takrady European housing units, to see the extent of dilapidation. Then we could cost that and add it to, the cost to completion. Then at least we know that once they get to site, they are doing the set of projects to complete.
So there's some priority
exactly
giving to these projects.
And we get disturbed when we hear things in the public space that do not really represent the way we are working. And I mean, it's hurting. But of course.
So the minority report should not be believed.
Oh, their report should be believed on the face of it in terms of what they saw. It is correct. Those facilities are there, but there was a reason why we are in that kind of situation. So we do not need to discredit what they've done. It's an eye opener. It's a wake up call. But what I want to assure everybody here is that the Ministry of Health is not sleeping. You understand?
Okay.
We are really. Yeah, yes, please.
Let me tell you
sorry, let him finish. We are done.
Oh,
we are done.
done.
We are not revisiting this.
Oh, we are not. Just a quick.
Okay, he's done. Okay, thank you. Thank you all very much.
When we have spent $1 billion on health facilities, but we cannot get an ambulance to a policeman who is shot and he has to sit behind a motorbike and dies. When we have spent $1 billion on health facilities and we lose a vice president because we couldn't get a $120 defibrillator, that is what we citizens worry about. You have the money and the power and the ministry and whatever to do what you're doing, and you are doing all these things. But I worry about when somebody has to go and give birth, and I've lost somebody who couldn't get a pint of blood.
Wow.
You understand? That is our issue.
Sorry about that.
Mr. Bento,
Sorry.
yes, one
answer
small
him
point.
in 1 minute.
Okay, just one small point. Your focus to go on the primary healthcare level is excellent, and that is what the ministry is doing now. So if you realize, you've seen the VAME type of polyclinics, the smaller one, 30-bed. That is what is being encouraged now, because in any case, our road network is not the best. So if you can have some of those smaller facilities in the very remote areas, you kind of solve
my involvement remains abundant. And we just need, all we need is one medical practitioner.
But why are you going to get
so,
that?
no, just one.
All right.
So what I've been doing is, virtually every quarter, I do free medical screening.
Was it under?
Free medical screening.
The Volu one.
Completed in 2014.
So what do you need?
Just
He says he needs only one medical.
One medical practitioner. Just one doctor.
Have you written to the ministry requesting for that?
Talk to the
You mean there's no director of health services in Volta region who should know
It's
that?
completed in 2015, not 2014.
We also have challenges.
Okay, thank you.
There are challenges everywhere. That's why we have leaders. So they have $1 billion
Thank you
they
very
spent
much,
in brick and mortar.
Mr. Kwame Amponsa,
It's a management issue.
architect,
but I talk of you
infrastructure directorate.
No, you see, you are our leaders.
We need those projects.
You are our leaders. No, you are our leaders.
Thank you. We'll be right back to deal with the questions of corruption. Will the tag stick? Akufo-Addo says, no, it won't. We'll be right back.
Leaders should solve our problems.
You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. On this very last segment, we are going to examine the corruption tag on President Akufo-Addo and his government, the accusation that he's been supervising historic graft. Is that correct? He has been saying a few things in reply. But before that, just one message on the hospital issues. Frank Anderson in London says that, let's stop these excuses. Queen's Hospital, where my first son was born, was not completed, but was in operation. There were scaffoldings and construction equipment on site, but the hospital was operating as normal. Tony Blair didn't have to commission before use. Let's stop making excuses for everything. The edifices are complete, and there is dire need by citizens. Hire personnel to operate them. That's what leadership is all about. Thank you very much, Frank Anderson, Jr. Now, let's hear President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo on the corruption tag and a few others who has some responses for him. They will come back to the studio.
The law of the jungle. I'm aware of the orchestrated attempts by my opponents to hang the tag of corruption on the necks of my government and myself, despite all the manifest efforts being made to deal with the phenomenon of corruption. I just have one simple answer for them. It will not work. I did not come into public life to enrich myself. So far, every single alleged act of corruption leveled against any of my appointees has been investigated by independent bodies such as SRAJ, the CID, and in some cases by Parliament itself. From the allegations against the then Minister Designate for Energy at his parliamentary confirmation hearings, to that against the former CEO of BOST, to those against the two deputy chiefs of staff, to the conflict of interest allegations against the Minister for Finance, to the claims of extortion against the Trade and Industry Minister, to allegations of doubling in visa racketeering against the then Deputy Minister for Youth and Sports, the then Director General of the National Sports Authority, who, even though exonerated by the CID, later resigned, and the chairperson of the board of the National Sports Authority, to the allegations of bribery leveled against the secretary to the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, to the latest involving the suspended acting CEO of the Public Procurement Authority, PPA, and the dismissed CEO of the National Youth Authority. They have all been investigated or are being investigated by the authorized institutions of the state and not by President Akufo-Addo. It is not my job to clear or convict any person accused of wrongdoing or of engaging in acts of corruption. My job is to act on allegations of corruption by referring the issue or issues to the proper investigative agencies for the relevant inquiry and necessary action.
Fuadu claimed that he has saved the country about 2.7 billion Ghana cedis through the rejection of sole source contracts presented to the PPA. Didn't he know that the PPA boss was actually the source of the sole source contract? We wish to submit that this claim is false and challenge the president to publish a full list of all the specific cases of saving. Let him tell us that this contract was going to be sole source. We blocked it. This is what we have saved. And the total is 2.7 billion. Let him come out to tell us. To the NYA scandal, where a 4.5 million Ghana cedis contract was unlawfully awarded to an entity without recourse to procurement laws, it has been established beyond all reasonable doubt that corruption is the way of life for the president and his government. How the president can turn around in the face of this glaring evidence and blame his political opponents is further proof of the bubble of denial which he lives in.
In a historic first in Ghana, the president directs our attention to the passage of 2 pieces of legislation with stiff sentences in 2 areas of our national discipline: political vigilantism and illegal small-scale mining. He has fulfilled a major campaign promise to take the incumbents' political influence out of corruption by swiftly establishing office of the special prosecutor. But if you have individuals who have large families, who are competent, who have been part of their struggle over the years and has been part of the political structure, there's no way anybody can accuse any government of bringing those competent, superior, technically able men and women to be part of his administration.
So you heard His Excellency the President at the annual Ghana Bar Association conference, and you heard also the National General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress, Johnson Esiedu Nketia, and then his counterpart in the NPP, John Boedu. Let me welcome my friend Gary Nimako Mafo. He's lawyer and member of the Legal Constitutional Committee of the New Patriotic Party. Thank you for joining us, Gary.
Thank you, my brother.
Great. Okay, so maybe I should start with Kofi.
Kofi has had a long time talking.
Kofi, why do I seem to hear too many people faulting the president? And I'm asking you also because, as a lawyer, what did the president say wrongly?
President didn't say anything wrong, and one of my friends just hinted or just sent a message and said that his problem was that it seems like the president came in to defend himself. And we all sensed that he felt like, yeah, he had to say something to defend himself. He didn't see anything wrong. But I think the first question as to why do we have this general feeling? You know, I teach my students something about expectation. Performance is not necessary by itself. It is what the expectation was, which is an issue. The thing with the president is that we all, or the people who are expecting maybe more of him, have such a high expectation of him.
And so in a sense, he has been a victim of his own high standards. As a lawyer of good standing, you know, being who he is, coming into office at this time and consistently saying that at this point in his life, what does he need? Okay, people believe him. And given some of the things that happened even before...
But that also, is this really about him as Akufo-Addo?
But that's the whole point. People have projected to him the responsibility to fight. That's a very important concept. We've projected it to him. Look, it's
so the
clear.
answer is not for him to say, I did not come to public office to enrich myself.
That's why I read my friend's text that people feel like, President, you are defending yourself. Okay? We actually don't think, or let's say me, I don't think President Akufo-Addo is corrupt per se. But people have such a high expectation or heart that being who he is, giving his track record, everything, we projected onto him personally the responsibility, I'm choosing my words well, to fight and try and bring this problem down. And there's a sense that it's not happening, at least at the level that we want it to happen.
The sense, in fact, is that it is worsening.
Well, yes, there's a sense it is worsening. Okay, so you can see why there is this sense of, well, Mr. President should do more. And I think we should pay attention to, you see, body language, especially in leadership. Look at Magufuli, all right? It's body language. When President Buhari came into office, my Nigerian friends told me that in the first few months, the man hadn't done anything. Things started working. The electricity started working. Look at Paul Kagame. So leadership has a certain message it has to send. And the worry is that people think that the president is being a bit too indifferent or a bit too detached. You know, he spoke about he's not the one to, you know, clear, we all agree. But the thing is, when there is a sense that, well, you've left it alone and let things work, we are quite sure in this country, based on all the things we've seen, that institutions don't work by themselves until you have strong, passionate men running them. So these are the mix of things which is causing this sense of, you know, disappointment that we are not fighting the corruption battle as we ought to be fighting.
Interesting, interesting. Now, you see, the NDC consistently says civil society doesn't, you know, speak about corruption, the manner it should do when the NPP is in government, traditionally, and that the clergy are also quiet. And sometimes you see them and hear them practically fighting the clergy and civil society. Now, they are quoting civil society, they are quoting CDD, they are quoting the clergy, and on the basis insisting that corruption is worse under Akufo-Addo. You say body language. What else can he do? He says what he does is that when the matters come up, he takes a step to refer them to the appropriate institutions. It is the institutions that clear them if they are cleared. What is his fault? What is wrong? What else can he do?
Again, I honestly don't want to make this about the president, but there is some sort of fact to some of these. Look at the Australia visa problem. It happened. Somebody took people there, disgraced this whole country. Okay, and the reports from these people is that money was collected from. It happened. There is direct responsibility and there is ultimate responsibility. Ultimate responsibility for executive action falls at the door of the president. The buck stops with him. The ministers and deputy ministers at the Ministry of Sports at the least should have been fired. Not because we didn't find direct responsibility with them, but they hold ultimate responsibility.
You're a lawyer. You talk of due process.
Yes.
You talk of natural justice. And if any one of them were fired in a public sort of office setting, not a political appointment, they may have consulted you. No. And you take them, you sue on their behalf, and they will win because natural justice is not followed.
No, they won't win. That's why I'm saying there is direct responsibility. We are not saying you caused this, but there is ultimate responsibility. By virtue of your office, it happened on your watch. Now, and I'm saying that buck stops at the president.
It happened on your watch. He suspended Pius.
You let me finish before I forget.
You say he should have sacked them.
No. Let me make my point. Listen. If even we didn't find the person who did it, and I'm saying this is why people perceive a certain sense that it's not being done. If we didn't find it, the fact that you sat there and somebody routed people to Australia and you couldn't catch it, the fact that we went all the way there and got disgraced, the fact that we can't find the person is the reason why you not shouldn't have your job. And that is the job of the president. There is no natural justice
He
there.
shouldn't have reinstated him.
Absolutely not, because of the body language thing. If you have this, President Kufuor says zero tolerance. You don't want, you see, even in law, justice must be done and must be seen to be done. And
Manifestly done.
Manifestly. In the area of politics, therefore, perception rules. Perception is more important than reality. So my view is that, look, if the man sat there and it happened under him, he didn't catch it. We went all the way to Australia to be disgraced. Nothing happened. We've come back. We are looking for the person. He doesn't have any idea. Then he has to take the fall for it.
Interesting.
So that's the ultimate responsibility.
Now, of course, the NDC held a press conference. The NPP held a press conference. For a moment, I thought the press conferences will not end. So how is it that the NDC insists that it is President Akufo-Addo who must suffer for the allegations of corruption, including, like he says, those actually proving wrongdoing that have happened with his appointees or people under his regime?
Something. It's about leadership. Leadership is cause. Leadership defines everything. And I agree with Kofi when he talks about body language. President Kufuor, zero tolerance for corruption. We know what President Rawlings stood for. And what you would today call little things that he pursued. I agree with Manasseh Azuri's latest write-up, brilliant, that President Akufo-Addo called President Mahamad's efforts a sham. Under President Mahama, a deputy minister for communications, just for loose talk, dreaming that she could make $1 million, she was fired. Under President Mahama, the Honorable Abu Gapile, a former member of parliament, a former minister of state, for the Jida scandal, was prosecuted. The president did not intervene whatsoever, allowed the judiciary to do its work. As we speak, he is languishing in jail in Isawam prison.
Together with Philip
Together
Asibit.
with Mr. Asibit. And yet the president described all of those efforts as sham. So I come back to Kofi, I agree with him that the president said high standards, raised expectations that, hey, so Ghanaians said, look, if even after all of what President Mahama is doing, it's a sham. The President Akufo-Addo says he's not impressed and that he will raise the bar. You cannot fault Ghanaians for having high expectations. Now, what we have seen rather is that if you listen to all the independent analysts, they are saying that corruption has worsened. We know the role Vitus Azim has played in the anti-corruption campaign in this country. He says this is the worst he has seen. Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo, Dr. Reku Brobe, the very Reverend Awachie Pratt, for the first time, diplomats, and I work in the diplomatic space as ranking member, you know that they are very, reticent and reserved, before they will speak. For the Dutch ambassador to publicly say what he said. And even with his latest attempt to, after the executive has, been overbearing, you heard what the information minister said about him, the Speaker of Parliament, even that he says that, look, he insists that Ghana Beyond Corruption must be a major plank of the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda. So, look, we are in a global village. We watch leaders all over, and we see how they are fighting corruption. Look at what happened in Sierra Leone a few weeks ago. The president's aide, President Julius Maada Bio's aide, goes to the synagogue church to give a testimony about how God has been good to her. And since they came into power a few months ago, she's been able to complete her building and all of that. Immediately, President Bio fires her. As we speak, Fatimata Gagbo is without a job and is facing trial. Fired her. Kenya, as we speak, the Kenyan finance minister was arrested and He is facing prosecution as we speak. He was arrested, detained by the anti-graft organization of Kenya. The president did not intervene. But the counterpart of all of these presidents in Ghana, there have been scandals that even before he says he does not interfere with investigative processes. Cash for seat, you remember? I was a major witness before the committee. And I was heartbroken when, even before the committee could adduce all facts and come to a determination, the president waded in and said that the allegations lacked merit and it was just a wild goose chase and it would go nowhere. The president's intervention immediately divided the committee's work. So for the first time in the history of the Ghanaian parliament, you had a majority report and a minority report. You don't do that. Look at what your counterparts are doing.
Whatever the president
in Rwanda,
said didn't stop the members of parliament who are independent-minded people who are adults
who are supposed to be independent-minded
to come to a report that would have
what will have happened.
otherwise.
What will have happened to them if they had gone against what their president has said, what their leader has said? He's our president, sorry, but what the flag bearer of their party, their leader, has said, and you know
what else?
You know how.
What else?
Then you remember the Oslo Gate. Even before Parliament would conclude its deliberations, he was asked in that encounter with the media, you recall, which many people scored him very low marks. He said that, oh, he heard me speaking on the floor during the budget review and it's just baseless and nobody should listen to me and all that.
The foreign affairs minister would have briefed him. And you know that she stands by her convictions about these matters and the facts. And because of that, I think she sued you also?
Well, I'm waiting to be served. But you do know that later on, all the statements they issued, they indeed conceded to the facts I raised on the floor. They have backed out of that particular transaction. They are not buying that house. And the latest information is that they are purchasing another building far lower, less than half of what they were going to purchase. So I have saved this country more than $5 million. And those are the facts. But why is the president in a hurry to clear his people? You remember the Bost Muvimpina Zouk oil matter. NPA had issued a statement. And you know that when it comes to the downstream petroleum sector, NPA is the authority. Issued a statement that, look, Muvimpina is not registered. I mean, what has gone on is virtually criminal, and that they are going to investigate, look into it. The energy minister sets up a committee. Out of the blue, we are told that a BNI report overrides the minister's committee, the MPA's investigations, and that Mr. Alfred Obimboating has been cleared.
Is that a
cleared by the BNI?
Is that a president?
A BNI report we all did not see.
The president is not BNI.
Now, as we speak, the Senior Hosi Committee's report is out, and they virtually have confirmed all of what.
So, question: what did the president do to Alfred Obing? Is Alfred Obing at post?
Alfred Obing was later, we're told, in some exercise. But what happened? And that is one of the issues. Look,
was it really some exercise?
Reshuffle of some chief executives. We're not told why he was relieved. We're not told.
Okay.
If you compare what President Akufo-Addo is doing to what his predecessors did and what his colleagues who are being touted as anti-corruption.
So you hold on briefly for
Lee Kuan Yew, finally. Lee Kuan Yew, who is credited, and why up to today, Singapore remains all the Transparency International reports. And by the way, talking about Transparency International reports, we are having our worst performance under President Akufo-Addo. So when President Akufo-Addo says his opponents want to place a tag on him, it's not about his opponents.
But when he says opponents, the NDC takes that to themselves. Is his opponents the NDC, only the NDC?
We are saying that the Dutch ambassador cannot be his opponent.
Okay.
We are saying that civil society cannot be the president's political opponents. Reverend Wachi,
which civil society are you referring to?
The clergy and all of
which
those, who are speaking. All of those who are speaking cannot come.
So just hold on for me. Just hold on for me. Just hold on for me.
I'm saying we need strong leadership.
Thank you.
The president is complicit, even by his appointments. The nepotistic way he appointed
Sami, can
his
you
officials.
Can you take a break for me? Thank you.
In the fight against
Thank you. So there's a constant reference to the Dutch ambassador. Let's hear exactly what the Dutch ambassador said. It's just some 1 minute. Let's hear him.
There is nothing so killing for the business climate, and you need a good business climate to attract foreign investment, I think, than corruption. Corruption is a very bad thing. Companies suffer and will stay away if they think that they are going to be harassed by corruption in a certain country. The slogan now is, the official policy is Ghana beyond AIDS. Why not Ghana beyond corruption?
Right, so you heard him for yourself. Now, Gary, Sami also referred to Manasseh Azoriawene, and this is what Manasseh has to say. What do you say about that when you cast it against the posture of the government now? We have heard, for example, the information minister address the press and say, oh, we should go beyond mere allegations, and that civil society and everybody should be careful, you know, and not be running there's corruption, there's corruption. Now, here's what Manasseh says. And he writes, it is clear from the actions taken in cases like judgment debts, the World Cup saga, JIDA, SADA, DVLA saga, the Metro Mass branding, etc., that the fight against corruption is a sham. I say again, the so-called fight against corruption is a sham, quote unquote. Who is speaking? Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, February 2016, in his True State of the Nation address. So Manasseh says, on JIDA, 2 people were imprisoned, including Abuga Pele and a former MP from Mohammed's government. 60 million cedis was retrieved from the RLG group. All the contracts but one were cancelled. A bill was drafted and passed into law to streamline JIDA. The YEA Act of 2015 was passed. I agree with President Akufo-Addo's assertion that more had to be done in the JIDA case. But if he was bold to call Mohammed's fight against corruption a sham, even with the above actions, then he should not take offense when Ghanaians think his efforts in fighting corruption are shambolic.
Samson, I disagree with Manasseh Azoriawene. He's a fine journalist. There are times that we cross our paths, you know, in legal banters, but I disagree with him on that score. And Ablakwa, you know already you are in court on a matter which I'm looking for you to serve you. Lucky I've seen you here. So the bailiffs will start coming here to come and serve you immediately.
I'm ever ready.
Anyway, it's good that at least 4 of us are lawyers, and my brother, Honorable Ablakwa, is a law student. You see, it's a lady. Prosecution.
Okay, you're an LLB holder, not a law student. Okay.
Oh, congratulations.
Right.
Congratulations.
Don't make this about me. You.
Okay,
We'll keep him in the chamber.
We'll train him in the chamber. Yeah.
His wife is a lawyer anyway.
You see, you cannot commence prosecution without investigation. That is a baseline. How do you prosecute somebody without investigation? When an allegation is made, the president in his right has to refer to the agency of state, whether BNI, whether IOCO, whether SHARJ, whether CID, or whatever, to investigate first. Without investigation, how do you proceed?
That's direct responsibility.
You have to investigate first.
No, ultimate responsibility.
No. You see, you cannot, and I must repeat this point, you cannot vicariously hold somebody liable for crime. If it's about crime, it is crime.
It's not crime.
Now, if somebody, for instance, has done something about procurement irregularities or breaches, and you say because the president appointed a person, he is vicariously liable for that offense, you can't say that. You cannot say that. You see, we can do politics with some of these things, but you must understand that when somebody has been said that, look, you've done something wrong, go and be investigated. Odi alterem patem, you must be heard. You have to be heard. Now, if you go and they investigate you, after investigation, it turns out that indeed and in fact there is some information to prosecute you, then you must come have your day in court. How can you put the person in court without investigation? Or Now, the mere fact that they say, let me even God forbid, that they say, oh, Mr. Ladi, who is my very, very good friend, has taken public money because he's a minister of state in charge of something. You say, by virtue of mentioning his name, God forbid, he's liable. And therefore, you should just take him to jail immediately. It doesn't work like that. No, but that's the effect of what you are saying. That's the effect of what Mr. Blakwa is saying.
No, nobody.
That's the effect.
Nobody has said that.
That's what I'm saying, that you cannot cross the threshold to go to court unless you have done what we call investigation. Now, the president was speaking to an audience made up of lawyers. And the basic tenet is that you have to refer the matter for the matter to be investigated.
The question is, has the president's principles changed from when he was in opposition and now in government?
I don't think so. I don't think. Why has the principles changed? The principles of investigation, the principles of law has not changed in the last 3 years. The fact that when the matter comes up and you should investigate hasn't changed for the last 3 years.
He said the actions that had been taken in the World Cup saga, in the JIDA, the SADA, the DVL saga, the Metro Mass, where people were made to resign, in all those matters, in the name of fighting corruption, was a sham. That's what he said. Did he mean then? Did he mean that President Mahama should have done something extra? And is he doing that extra? That's the question I suppose they are asking him.
Well, you see, let me now bring you back. The matters that His Excellency referred about the cases which, since he assumed office, has come to his attention or his knowledge.
Yeah.
The Ajaku matter, which Parliament itself investigated, and which Parliament itself cleared. Now, Honorable Blakwa said there are 2 reports. There are no 2 reports.
No,
it is only 1 report.
No, cash for seat. You are talking about the Jacob bribery.
Sorry, the cash for seat. There are not 2 reports. It is only 1 report.
Cash for seat, there are 2 reports. There's a majority report and a minority.
No. A report is 1 report. Now, if there's a minority view, it should be incorporated in the report itself. It's only 1 report. You don't go and sit somewhere, and then when a report is being prepared...
We issued a minority report. You can't speak for the minority. I am
so we have gone over that debate that the process required that it ought to be incorporated.
It was incorporated.
Yes. But you guys couldn't agree. So
yes, so it will be 1 report. So we cannot say there are 2 different reports.
So let's get to the
substance. That is 1.
Yeah.
2, the issue about the 2 deputy chief of staffs. It is a CID that did the work and clear the matter. The issue about the
Shraj also dealt with that matter, actually, with the deputy chiefs of staff.
Yes, and clear the matter. You see, there is a certain semblance, a certain...
Okay, so I'm not trying any defense here. I'm only giving information out because, as you know, I represent one of the deputy chief of staff in court who sued somebody who repeated these allegations. Yeah.
Great. You see, there is a certain subculture that once a name comes up, once somebody mentions your name for any wrongdoing, then you are guilty as charged. That is a difficulty I have. You see, if you are not careful, we'll move this country into a stage where now it will matter no more the fact that anybody says that, oh, Gary Marco, you are involved in something, no court, no investigation, nothing, you should just take you to someone prison. Is that how we want to go? I don't think so.
Has the president, yes, on the basis of prima facie investigations, dismissed people in his government? Has he, on the basis of prima facie investigations, asked people to resign from office? Has he done so?
But recently, you were in this country. In fact, I was even out of town when I heard that the
National Youth
Authority, there was a problem there.
So that's the example they are trying to use.
There was a problem.
They are saying that why can't you do same in the other situations to show that you are actually serious about the fight?
No, but if investigation has been conducted on the matter, and it turns out the person is not liable, so how do you dismiss a person?
So who is liable?
Australia
visas
so why is it that in the NYA case you have not concluded investigations by an established body, and yet the people have been asked to go home?
Because possibly the information available to the president suggests that something wrong might have occurred, and therefore that decision to take that action having occasion.
So the same question.
Having occasion.
Australian visa scandal.
Because it is information available to the president at that material time that is crucial. You see,
the announced investigations on his appointee which he referred to also.
Which announced investigation?
I'm talking about Charles Bisu. The Galamsey fraud.
Yeah, but Charles Bisu, there's a police CID report which has cleared him, isn't it? And we are told that
the police CID did not have information. And did not petition them. The Office of Special Prosecutor.
Hold on. I have the documents here. I know the level of these matters.
You see, we should get at this point very clear. There was a certain statement made by the SP to the effect that
Special Prosecutor.
Yeah, that well, he's investigating the matter, and therefore the CID should also not have investigated the matter.
Yes, he wrote to them actually. He wrote to the Interior Minister.
That position, I disagree with him.
I agree.
I disagree with him.
He didn't have it right.
You see, you cannot oust the power of the CID to investigate any matter of crime or suspected crime. You can't oust it. You cannot. In any event, the SP has a very limited area of jurisdiction that he can go in. It's not even matter that he can investigate.
Yes.
You understand?
That's true.
So you see,
but he was seized with the matter.
What do you say? What do you say about this other thing they say?
Not?
Gary, they also say that.
Yes.
So why is it that these reports only get to the president, and he's the one who announces that the people have been cleared, and he doesn't share these reports with the public?
I think that call could be a legitimate call.
Okay.
That, well, it's a matter of public information if you want to. But you have been in court severally, demanding reports from court, in the Human Rights Court. I've seen it severally. So if you have interest in the report, why have you to, use the new law that we have been passed recently? Right information, which you were very instrumental in.
It is not in effect.
Well, it's not in effect, but the act is still is there. And again, Mr. Ladi has gone to court severally to invoke the constitutional imperative to get access.
Questions. Don't direct this at me.
No, but you see, if you think that the information is relevant and you need it, there's a procedure to get information through other means. If you know
those who are asking the questions,
they should go to court. They can go and get the information.
Be proactive about it.
You understand the thing? You see, let's understand it this way. And I always share this view, very dispassionately. We should all understand that corruption matters. It didn't start today. That is one. Two, we should all agree as a nation that this idea of, let's say, who is much more corrupt than that, NDC and MPP in a political match. Let's see whether NDC is more corrupt. Let's see MPP is more corrupt. That will not end us anywhere. You know why? We should understand that money is meant for public services. If it ends in the wrong pocket, it's wrong. How can money is meant for all of us, the general good, end up in my private pocket when I'm the custodian of that money? It is wrong. And therefore, we shouldn't encourage that kind of behavior. And that is why, in my humble view, and the view of the party, if it turns out that any investigation goes on, and in fact, it is very clear that you have been involved in any malfeasance, the party cannot shield you.
Okay. What about if you have a responsibility?
So, like the president said, the president will act on the recommendations when they come to him.
And rightly so. And rightly so. If you look at the events so far, everything that's come to him, he has recommended. So referred. So if you cannot have one person who will be an investigator, the same person a prosecutor, the same person adjudicator or a judge.
Okay.
Is it possible?
Let's hear Doc briefly.
Is it possible?
Yes. Doc, what do you say?
Yeah,
let's hear Doc.
You see, I think that we need to put this whole thing in context. I have categorized them into three areas. The first is the rules, the processes, the procedures. What are we doing about them? And I think what the president said at the bar was apt. He was speaking to the facts. He has strengthened some of these things. The Office of the Special Prosecutor has come. He's giving resources to the agencies, SHRAG, IOCO, all of them. It might not be perfect, but at least he's improved on the allocations to them. So we expect them to do more. Now, the law requires that there should be due diligence, and then the rules and processes must be followed. So if the president says that, look, people will have to go through the due process, I agree with him.
Does it sound to you that the president was unaware of the due process when he claimed that in 2016, February, that the actions taken by John Mahama in those matters in which some people have actually been incarcerated were a sham
yes.
in the fight against corruption?
And he concluded that more has to be done.
Yes.
I'm going to come to that. So I think we all need to agree that that first premise, we will have to abide by same. There's no way we can go out of the rule of law. The second has to do with the institutions themselves. It is about time we let the institutions understand that they are accountable to the people of Ghana. Such that when they conduct some of these things, it is up to them to feed us with the right information and give us the opportunity to also question them about certain things. It shouldn't take the president to be the one who will announce whatever outcome they come with. They should take it that this is the output of our work, and we stand by it. And publish so that, yes, that's what I'm saying, publication. Make the information known to us so that we can also challenge them where we think that they need to be challenged. And then in the process, we strengthen the institution. Then, the
one of our viewers watching outside of the country, YK Ansembwa, says he was expected to hit the road running. Sami spoke about expectations. Hit the road running radically himself to inject a new sense of purpose into fighting corruption. But he still doesn't get it, unfortunately for Ghana. Defending his appointees who have compromised their position and his governments is indeed sad and hopeless to his acclaimed intention to fight corruption.
Good. That leads me into the third bit that I was going to say. Perception. You see, this whole corruption thing is measured on perception. Now, when it comes to the perception, it is what the ordinary man is being fed with, and he is made to, in quote, believe, or he thinks that this is the state. And this is where I think that the president, like he said, more has to be done. He needs to do more to ensure that that perception is erased. Because, look, we as a people, based on the promises he gave us, we expected a lot more from him. So if at this point, a section of the population thinks that more is not being done as per what he had promised us, then clearly that perception will still linger on. So we need a lot more to be done from his end. Okay. And when we say from his end, we don't mean his person.
All right, so I ran out of time. Jake says that Gary Nimako says there is no vicarious liability for crime. Yes, that's true. But when you read the Quality Grain case and the judgment of Justice Afre on the offense of causing financial loss to the state, it appears to me that there is indeed vicarious liability for certain financial offenses in Ghana.
It is the offense, say willfully causing.
Willfully causing. Sorry, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry, but this is where time takes us to
the latest 2018 Auditor General's report. You know the matter
so
of...
my guests for this segment have been Gary Nimako Mafo, lawyer and member of the Legal Constitutional Committee of the NPP. Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa is MP Northtown and ranking member Foreign Affairs in Parliament. Dr. Justice Yangson, General Secretary, GMA and lawyer. And Kofi Bentil is Senior Vice President, Imani Africa. He just said, oh, time is just run out. I'm sorry. I'm Samson Ladia Yenini. My outfit, as always, is by Latida. Have a good afternoon.